Chapter 970. This voice was stiff and cold, like metal clashing against metal. Upon hearing this voice, Chuyang didn't need to look, and an image appeared in his mind. Skinny like firewood, tall eagle-like eyes and a face like a corpse. He looked up and saw a green robe in front of him. Chuyang smiled, walked up the last step and stood in front of this person. He looked up and nodded. Not bad. Skinny like firewood, tall eagle-like eyes and a face like a corpse. His guess was right. He smiled and said, "You are?" That green-robed person snorted and said, "I'm the law enforcement master of the South." "I'm Mu." Chuyang smiled and said, "So it's law enforcement master Mu. Sorry for my rudeness. What did you say just now? I was too nervous and didn't hear it clearly." Mu said angrily, "You're still pretending to be deaf and dumb? Chuyang Envoy Chu. You're so majestic and have such a strong murderous aura. You've been killing people in the South all the way here. It's as if you're chopping melons and vegetables. Blood splatters everywhere. Let me ask you, what's your backing?" Han Xiaoran and that fat person followed behind, and there was another person in purple. The three of them looked at Chuyang. Han Xiaoran smiled. Obviously he was very confident that Chuyang could pass this test. Chuyang's face turned cold and he said lightly, "Law enforcement master Mu, you're wrong." Mu said angrily, "How am I bad?" Chuyang said coldly, "I thought that you were joking with me. I didn't expect that you weren't. I thought that you would reward me greatly or be deeply grateful to me after seeing me. I didn't expect that you weren't. And I didn't expect that you would denounce me on our first meeting because of this matter. This made me very surprised." Mu was so angry that he laughed. "Little one, are you trying to say that you've overstepped your authority in the South? You've made all the enforcers in the South lose face? Now that you've killed someone here, I'm still going to thank you for it? Reward you? Could it be that you're dreaming? Tell me, why should I be grateful to you?" Chuyang said calmly, "Law enforcement master Mu, do the law enforcement officers have a record of everyone in the area? Do you have a criminal record for rape and robbery?" Mu was stunned and said, "What are you trying to say?" Chuyang said lightly, "The people from the Sun clan are tyrannical and tyrannical. They collude with the law enforcement officers and bully everyone in the village. Enforcer Mu, you should know about this, right?" He said indifferently, "If you say that you don't know, you should thank me even more." Mu glared at him fiercely. He had a belly full of anger, but he couldn't say that he didn't know. If they knew, it would be a crime of connivance. If he didn't know, it would be an oversight. The mission and purpose of us law enforcement officers is to eliminate violence and bring peace to the people. Chuyang said righteously, "What's the point of killing such villains and villains? Although I may have overstepped my boundaries, I believe that even if the Dharma Supreme were here, he would also clap his hands and cheer." Mu coldly snorted and said, "So, not only are you not at fault for killing my people, you're even rewarded?" "That's right." Chuyang said decisively, "I've eradicated the villains in your jurisdiction and protected your reputation. I've also prevented you from being punished for your negligence. I've made a great contribution to the entire Southeast region. If you still have any grudges, why don't we go up separately and let the Dharma Supreme judge this principle?" Mu was tongue-tied. Others might not know, but how could he not know? Law enforcement officers had the right to directly report to the Dharma Supreme. If Han Xiaoran really did this, he reckoned that even if he didn't die, he would lose a layer of skin. Looking at Chuyang, he couldn't help but feel a little angry. He had made a small show of strength, but he didn't expect to be hit on the head by the other party. "So, if you want to reward me, although it would be impolite for me to refuse, I can only accept it with guilt," Chuyang said smilingly. "Ah, Mu, you've suffered a loss this time, right?" That fatty laughed loudly. "You think that everyone is afraid of your cold face? Haha, this little brother is really eloquent, really eloquent. Brother Han, you've got a good helper." Han Xiaoran smiled and said, "My little brother's ability is naturally not comparable to ordinary people." He turned and said to Mu, "Mu, little brother is right. You said that you're in charge of the South region, but what have you done to the South region? If it wasn't for this little brother, you'd be in for a treat when the Dharma Supreme comes a few days later. Now you're actually refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, humph." Mu's face turned red. He snorted and said, "Even if my people are in the wrong, they shouldn't be lectured by others. Han Xiaoran, I'll remember this." Han Xiaoran said lightly, "If law enforcement officer Mu wants to keep a record, feel free to go to the Southeast region. I don't mind at all. As long as the people you kill are bad guys, not to mention 8 or 10, even if it's 100,000, I won't even frown. Moreover, I promise that as long as you kill one, I'll treat you to a drink. Wu snorted. Then he turned around and walked back in large strides. He sat down heavily on a chair and shot a glance at Chu Yang. Han Xiaoran snorted, then looked at Chu Yang and said with a smile, "Brother, let me introduce you. This fatty is the law enforcement officer of the North Region, Yuan Jinbao." Law enforcement officer Yuan? Chu Yang smiled and cupped his hands. Yuan Jinbao laughed and said, "Little brother, you're young and promising. I really admire you." The purple-clothed elder who had been standing behind Chu Yunxing stepped forward. A friendly smile appeared on his square face. He said, "Special Envoy Chu, I am Zhuge Shanyun." Chu Yang was shocked. He knew that there would be an important figure from the Zhuge clan here, but he didn't expect that the one who was in charge of welcoming guests here was actually the clan master of the Zhuge clan. Zhuge Shanyun. Everyone chatted and walked into the hall. This was a rather spacious space with a radius of a few hundred feet. There were only 10 tables set up. The seats of the host and the seats of the guests were clear at a glance. Moreover, the host's seat didn't show any power, and the guest's seat didn't show any alienation. It could be seen that these were all carefully designed. Chu Yang and Han Xiaoran naturally sat at the same table. Zhuge Shanyun from the Zhuge clan sat alone at the table. Other than the maids, there were no other people from the Zhuge clan. This phenomenon made Chu Yang frown. No matter what, the Zhuge clan as the host should have a few more people to welcome guests. Moreover, since the clan master was here personally, there should be more people to accompany guests. But there wasn't even one. This made Chu Yang immediately feel that this banquet had a different meaning. Other than that, the doctor from the South region sat together with Muyu. The doctor from the North region sat together with Yuan Jinbao. However, these two people were the fattest and they were squeezed together at the same table. Instantly it became a little crowded. Han Xiaoran secretly held Chu Yang's hand tightly and then let go, hinting him to calm down. Chu Yang understood tacitly. So he sat there quietly. Everyone started chatting casually. Not long after, the sound of footsteps could be heard from outside. A maid quickly came in and reporting to Master, the Ling family's second master and Miss Ling are here. Zhuge Shanyun immediately said, "Quickly welcome them." As he said, he stood up. Chu Yang looked on coldly and thought, "When I came just now, this old man was hiding at the back, but now he's the first to stand up." Sure enough, people from big clans have a good life. As the greetings were exchanged, Ling Hanwu and Ling Hanxue walked in. Both of them were dressed in white, and their figures were tall and straight. One man and one woman just like a golden couple. Once they came in, they greeted the others with smiles. When he saw Chu Yang, Ling Hanwu's face changed slightly and he walked over. "Brother Chu, you're here so early, huh?" "I'm a little closer." Chu Yang smiled. Ling Hanxue also looked over thoughtfully and suddenly asked, "Brother Chu, is Miss Z here?" Chu Yang naturally understood what she meant. It seemed that Zi Sheqing's strength made the Ling clan very afraid. He smiled and said, "She went out to play. It's not appropriate to bring a family member to such a formal occasion." Ling Hanxue's face changed and she looked at him deeply saying, "So Miss Z is Brother Chu's?" "Yes, sorry." Chu Yang smiled calmly, "She's my concubine. She's a country girl who hasn't seen the world, sorry." Ling Hanxue snorted, turned back and sat down coldly, ignoring him. With her intelligence, she naturally wouldn't believe that a woman like Zi Sheqing would be a concubine. And a concubine. Since Chu Yang said so, it meant that he still wouldn't tell the truth. This guy actually said something like, "A country girl?" If Zi Sheqing was a country girl, then there would really be no beauties in this world. Ling Hanwu smiled bitterly and followed him to sit down. Then the Yi clan also came. The people who came were Yi Shiyu and the second master Yi. "Aunt has traveled a long way and she's not feeling well. She asked me to inform Clan Master Zhuge." "Please don't blame her," Yi Shiyu said. Their table was right opposite Chu Yang, and they saw Chu Yang at first glance. Yi Shiyu's face turned pale instantly. Everyone was curious. There's actually someone who can scare the three masters of the Yi clan to this extent? They turned their heads curiously, and saw Chu Yang giving Yi Shiyu an affectionate look. Instantly all their hair stood on end. The pores on Yi Shiyu's face opened up, and his pale face drooped down, and his whole body even shivered a little. Zhuge Shanyun said that it's okay, but there was still some disappointment on his face. But no matter how disappointed he was, it couldn't be compared to Ling Hanwu's disappointment. Once Ling Hanwu heard that Yi Chuchen wasn't coming, he immediately became listless. Now, almost everyone had arrived, but Zhuge Shanyun hadn't announced the start of the ceremony. The few law enforcement masters were also sitting quietly as if they were waiting for someone. Chu Yang felt strange. Who else is there? From the looks of it, it seems that everyone knows. Hurried footsteps could be heard from afar on the White Jade Bridge. Just by listening to this sound, one could hear the panic of the people coming. Zhuge Shanyun furrowed his brows tightly. The next moment, a strong gust of wind blew upstairs, and a hurried and terrified voice shouted, "Clan Master!" Bad news. The Chen clan had just entered Tianji City this afternoon, but they were attacked. 2 dukes, for supreme martial artists, and 150 people of the Chen clan were all killed. Zhuge Shanyun stood up suddenly. What? Han Xiaoran, Yuan Jinbao and Mu Yu also raised their heads, their eyes full of disbelief. How is this possible? Chapter 971. The entire Chen clan was annihilated? Chu Yang was also shocked. Then he immediately thought, my goodness, could it be Big Sister Z who did it? How did those people from the Chen clan provoke Big Sister Z? She was so furious that she killed all of them, but everyone present was already shocked. It wasn't just a huge shock, it was a violent shock. Who was the Chen clan? What kind of power was it? It was one of the dominant clans. In addition, they were here to attend the medicine banquet. Those who were sent out were definitely the elites of their clans. Such people would definitely be protected by experts. And the most important thing was that after the medicine banquet, there had to be top-notch experts and big clans to participate in this grand event. For the most important thing after the medicine banquet. And the reason why Zhuge Shanyun invited the 3 law enforcement masters, Yi clan, Ling clan and the Chen clan to gather here was to make arrangements for this matter. But now the Chen clan didn't need to wait anymore. What was this called? What happened? After the initial shock, Zhuge Shanyun sat down slowly. When he asked this question he had already calmed down. Chu Yang praised him in his heart. He was indeed the clan master of the Zhuge clan. His composure was really not to be underestimated. Since the matter had already happened, there was no point in rushing over now. Besides, the matter wasn't clear yet. If they rushed over, it was still uncertain what would happen. One must know, why would someone who could annihilate the Qin clan care about the Zhuge clan? Qin clan. Qin. That martial artist calmed himself down, but his voice was still a little hurried. Zhuge Shanyun frowned and said, drink a cup of tea first. Calm down and speak slowly. There's no hurry. At this moment, Ling Hanwu, Han Xiaoran and the rest also sat down. After the initial shock they were all full of doubts now. That martial artist sat down and took a few quick breaths. Then he picked up a cup of tea and drank it in one gulp. Zhuge Shanyun frowned and said, order those who went to welcome the Qin clan to come in. If there are any irrelevant observers, bring them in too. As he said, he cupped his hands towards Han Xiaoran, Mu Yu and Yuan Jinbao, and said smilingly, since the 3 law enforcement masters are here, you can also listen to the whole story of this matter. Han Xiaoran and the other 2 nodded slightly with heavy expressions. This incident could be said to be a major case that shook the heavens. If they were not careful, the Qin family would revolt and take revenge. Then the entire Jianghu would never have a day of peace. If the Qin family targeted the Zhuge family, then the Zhuge family would really be in trouble. Now that Han Xiaoran and the other 2 were here, they had to clarify the matter in front of everyone. Although it seemed hasty, it was precisely because of this haste that they managed to clear the suspicion of the Zhuge clan. No one could doubt the testimony of the 3 law enforcement masters. Not long after, 7 or 8 people filed in. There was also one person who was dressed like an ordinary martial artist. It was obvious that he was not from here. When Chu Yang saw this he almost laughed out loud. This person was actually someone familiar, Nangong Shifeng. Nangong Shifeng of Jinjian Hall. Now they could be said to be Chu Yang's men. However, his face was now somewhat smooth without those tattoos and words. Although it was still dark and ugly, it was a world of difference compared to before. Nangong Shifeng also saw Chu Yang, but he hadn't seen Chu Yang's true appearance, so he didn't recognize him. He turned his gaze away from Chu Yang's face and glanced at everyone present in fear. Then he lowered his head again. Clan Master, this person witnessed the whole process of the matter. That martial artist reported respectfully. After the matter, he had already left. However, he boasted in the restaurant saying that the Qin family was simply a bunch of perverts. If it were me, I would have already apologized. Then wouldn't everything be fine? We found his words strange, so we went forward to interrogate him. We actually caught him red-handed. What a cheap mouth. What a cheap mouth. Mu Yu looked at Nangong Shifeng coldly and said. When this sentence was said, everyone nodded their heads in agreement. You witnessed such an important matter with your own eyes, which was equivalent to a fight between immortals. It's fine if you left quickly, but you actually went out to boast. If it were you, you would do so and so. What else could it be other than a cheap mouth? Chuyang sighed and shook his head. Nangong Shifeng's mouth. Last time he had already suffered a loss because of his cheap mouth. He didn't expect that he would repeat the same mistake this time. Speaking of which, Nangong Shifeng was slippery and clever in handling matters. However, he had suffered a loss because of his cheap mouth. The first time was when he met Yi Xiu. The second time was when he met Chuyang. Now, it was still because of his cheap mouth. Chuyang thought of this and realized that the person involved seemed to be present. Yi Xiu at one side had already shouted, "I was wondering why I found him so familiar. Oh my, isn't this Nangong Shifeng? Who removed the tattoo on your head for you?" Nangong Shifeng's body shivered and he said, "I was lucky to meet a divine doctor." Yi Xiu said, "That's good, I'll tattoo another one for you tomorrow." Nangong Shifeng lowered his head deeply and a trace of bitter resentment flashed past his eyes. Zhuge Shanyun coughed and said, "You're Nangong Shifeng?" Nangong Shifeng said, "Yes, I am." Zhuge Shanyun nodded kindly and said, "I called you here today to testify about what happened at the city gate this afternoon. After that, I'll let you go. You don't have to feel too pressured." Nangong Shifeng nodded, "Yes, thank you very much, clan master." Zhuge Shanyun laughed and said, "You're smart." "Yes, I'm the current clan master of the Zhuge clan, Zhuge Shanyun. As for the three people opposite you, they are the law enforcement master of the southeast region, Lord Han, the law enforcement master of the north region, Lord Yuan, and the law enforcement master of the south region, Lord Mu. The one on your right is the second master of the Ling clan, Ling clan. As for the two dukes of the Yi clan, you know them, so I won't introduce them." Nangong Shifeng lowered his head and said, "Yes." He was shocked. It turned out that everyone present here was a big shot. Zhuge Shanyun said, "I didn't introduce these people to you for you to know, but to let you know that if there's any falsehood in what you're about to say, it'll be a disaster. You have to think carefully." Nangong Shifeng trembled and said, "Yes, I'll remember." Zhuge Shanyun laughed and said, "Tell me in detail what happened in the afternoon." Nangong Shifeng agreed. He licked his lips and started to recall, "In the afternoon, I felt a little bored in the city. And I don't look good, so no one was willing to get close to me. So I went to the city gate to look at the heroes coming from all directions. I thought that if there's anyone who doesn't know the way, I'll earn some extra money." Chuyang smiled in his heart, but he also felt a little tempted. The reason why Nangong Shifeng went to the city gate was probably not to earn some extra money, but to gather information for himself. When I reached the city gate, the sun was already setting. The people of the Qin clan were rushing over from afar. Their momentum was quite majestic. When they were less than 2 miles away from the city gate, a young lady in black suddenly rushed over from afar. She galloped all the way and passed by the Qin clan's troops. Nangong Shifeng recalled. "Lady in black? What does she look like?" Everyone was smart. When they heard this, they immediately understood that the matter was related to this lady in black. Chuyang was surprised. Lady in black? It seemed that Zi Sheqing had always been dressed in white, but she had never worn black. Why was there another lady dressed in black in the upper three heavens who came out of nowhere? This lady in black had a black veil over her face, and her figure was very slim. "But I couldn't see her face clearly," Nangong Shifeng replied. "Yes, continue," Zhuge Shanyun said. At that time she was already very close to the city gate. The lady in black passed by the Qin clan's troops and was about to enter the city. But at this moment, someone in the Qin clan's troops laughed loudly. "What a perverted smell, what a big butt." Could it be that this lady let out a fragrant fart? Tsk, she's indeed a beauty. A beauty's fart is also fragrant. Everyone furrowed their brows when they heard this. This sentence was full of hooligan taste and ruffian nature. Was it said by someone from the Qin clan? This was too improper. Did someone from the Qin clan say this? Han Xiaoren asked. As a law enforcement master, he had handled countless cases in his life. He was sensitive to some unreasonable things and would be the first to ask. "Yes," Nangong Shifeng said. He blinked and added, "At that time, there was a strong wind from the south and dust was flying everywhere. The lady in black passed by on her horse and the dust on the ground splashed up. Oh," everyone was suddenly enlightened. It must be someone from the Qin clan who had eaten the dust of others and felt uncomfortable, so he deliberately found fault. Thinking about it, what kind of people was the Qin clan? How would they be willing to suffer such losses? Besides, the person who spoke seems to be Qin Feiyu, the 10th Duke of the Qin clan. Nangong Shifeng added hesitantly. So it's him, no wonder. Everyone frowned when they heard the name, Qin Feiyu. Qin Feiyu, the 10th Duke of the Qin clan, was famous for being lustful and could be said to be a famous lecher in the heavens. He was a typical master of destroying flowers. Moreover, even the martial arts that he practiced was the dual cultivation of body and body, which was to pluck the yin to supplement the yang. Everyone was not surprised when Qin Feiyu said this sentence just now. On the contrary, it would be strange if Qin Feiyu didn't say this sentence in the team. Qin Feiyu had done a lot of bad things these years, but he had the protection of the Qin clan behind him. The law enforcement officers couldn't do anything to him. It seemed that this lecher had met a tough opponent this time. When the lady in black heard this sentence, she actually turned her horse back and said, "Who was the one who spoke just now?" Nangong Shifeng imitated the way the lady in black spoke. His voice was actually somewhat stern. Everyone looked at each other. It seemed that this lady in black had a strong background. Even if she didn't know that she was from the Qin clan, how could she be an ordinary person when she dared to question a team of more than 100 people when she was alone? Chapter 972. Everyone frowned and racked their brains. But they still couldn't figure out when there was such a girl in black in the heavens. In his memory, the only woman who could be so valiant was Venerable Feng Yuro. However, Feng Yuro had never worn black. Then Qin Feiyu jumped out and said, "Girl, did you fall in love with my voice at first sight? You're actually reluctant to leave. Come, sister, take off your mask and let me see how you look like. Let me see which one is more attractive compared to your butt." As he said, he wanted to hook the girl's chin. Nangong Shifeng was indeed a bitch in the heavens. When he described how a hooligan molested a woman, it was so vivid. Even his voice revealed a sense of lust. Everyone was silent. They were speechless that the Qin clan, one of the dominant clans, had such a hooligan. Wait. Han Xiaoran frowned and asked, "Qin Feiyu can't be the only person in the Qin clan's team." On the surface, there were 4 supreme martial artists, along with the medicine master and a few Gong Li Lian. In the dark, there should be another super expert. There were countless monarch-level and saint-level experts. Why didn't these people stop Qin Feiyu when they saw him going overboard? Nangong Shifeng said, when Qin Feiyu came out, no one stopped him. But someone in the team said in a weird voice, "This girl is very arrogant. Our Qin clan hasn't come out for a long time. It's time to show our power." After hearing this, the 3 law enforcement masters and Zhuge Shanyun all had a weird look on their faces. Haven't they seen someone like this before? His own child was being unreasonable and molesting a woman, and this person actually encouraged him? Han Xiaoran's face changed and he said, "The voice of the person who spoke was very weird?" Yes, it was like a weird voice whose voice had been ruined. Just one sentence from him made people have goosebumps all over, Nangong Shifeng said. At that time there were many people watching at the city gate. But after hearing this sentence, everyone ran away. Zhuge Shanyun and the 3 law enforcement masters looked at each other and nodded. Ghost King. Qin Naihe, the Ghost King of the Qin clan. It turned out that this old monster was conniving. No wonder. Qin Naihe became famous 3,000 years ago. His natural disposition was cruel and ruthless. After his cultivation went berserk, he became neither a human nor a ghost. However, not only was he not crippled, he even made the best of his mistakes. Using his broken meridians to cultivate, he fed on human hearts and human blood to cultivate the earth-shattering Ghost King divine skill. It turned out that the extreme Dao expert sent by the Qin family this time was Qin Naihe. However, everyone was even more puzzled. If it was really Qin Naihe, then he was a supreme grade expert. Who could kill him so easily? As for the black-clothed girl, everyone no longer held any hope for her. No matter how strong the black-clothed young lady was, since she was called a young lady, it was impossible for her to be a match for Qin Naihe. Continue. Han Xiaoran's expression was a little bleak as he sat back on the chair. As the chief law enforcement officer, there were countless evil people in this world that even he was powerless against. For example, the 10th young master of the Qin clan and Qin Naihe of the Qin clan. And he corrected himself, sighing because he couldn't do anything. In Han Xiaoran's opinion, no matter who broke the law, he should be punished. It couldn't be like now, where the law enforcement officers didn't have the right to punish the direct descendants of big clans for their mistakes. The law enforcement officers seemed to have great power, but in a sense they were completely bullying the poor. Ordinary law enforcement officers could only punish some ordinary martial artists, but that was his dream after all. Right now, such a situation was completely impossible. Yes. Nangong Shifeng replied and continued, when the black-clothed young lady saw Qin Feiyu being frivolous, she gave him a slap on his face. She actually slapped Qin Feiyu down from his horse. She scolded, "If such a pervert lives in this world, I don't know how many innocent women will be harmed. Today I'll cut off this root of trouble." As she said, she unsheathed her long sword and stabbed him in the chest without hesitation. "Good." Han Xiaoran slammed the table. "This young lady is really neat. Such a bastard, the earlier we kill him, the earlier we get rid of him." Mu Yu and Yuan Jinbao both frowned and looked at Han Xiaoran. They thought, Han Xiaoran is really crazy. That's the Qin clan. If what you said was spread out, it would be a big disaster. He actually had no scruples at all. But since it didn't concern them, the two of them naturally didn't care. Moreover, the Qin clan? That's not within the jurisdiction of the three of them. Why are you crazy? Seeing that Qin Feiyu was about to die under the sword, a hand suddenly appeared out of nowhere and grabbed the blade of the black-clothed young lady. That weird voice said, "What a fierce girl. You don't like my great-great-great-grandson, but I must make you my great-great-grandson's concubine." And it actually snatched the black-clothed young lady's sword away with its bare hands. Han Xiaoran frowned. How old is the black-clothed young lady? What's her cultivation? Nangong Shifeng hesitated and said, "I can't see her face clearly, so I don't know how old she is. But her cultivation is very high. She should be a 3rd or 4th stage martial saint." But under that hand she couldn't resist at all. Everyone was puzzled. How could a 3rd or 4th stage martial saint be an opponent of a supreme martial saint who had already crossed the boundary between immortal and mortal? That was something that shouldn't be mentioned. That black-clothed young lady said angrily, "Who are you? Are you going to be indifferent when you see your companions flirt with women?" That weird voice laughed and said, "Wrong, how can I be indifferent? On the contrary, I still have to help my great-great-grandson. The more you don't like him, the more you hate him, and the more you want to kill him, the more I'll make you his concubine." Nangong Shifeng continued to narrate. "Trash." Han Xiaoran scolded, "You've lived for more than 3,000 years but you're still trash. Ghost King? What Ghost King? Even if he's an evil ghost from the netherworld, he won't be so unreasonable." Ling Hanwu nodded and said, "This does seem to be Qin Naiha's style. This Ghost King Qin Naiha has always been brutal. I heard that after he went mad he became impotent and psychopathic. He specializes in torturing and killing women. The more beautiful a woman is, the crueler his means of torturing and killing her. But his cultivation is so high that not many people can do anything to him. He hasn't appeared in the martial world for more than 1,000 years. I didn't expect that the Qin clan would still send him out for this medicine banquet." Nangong Shifeng waited for everyone's discussion to come to an end before he continued. That black-clothed young lady was originally very angry when her sword was caught by him. But when she heard this, she suddenly calmed down and asked, "Which clan are you from?" Then she paid attention and said, "Are you from the Qin clan, one of the big aristocratic families?" She must have seen the symbol of the Qin clan. That weird voice said, "It's too late to flatter me now." But before he finished, the black-clothed young lady suddenly abandoned her sword and fled. Her actions were very fast. Everyone sighed. Her reaction was good and her strategy was completely correct. But how could a martial saint escape from the hands of a supreme martial artist? Not to mention in the hands of a low-grade supreme martial artist? That weird voice laughed and said, "Want to leave? How can it be so easy?" He actually continued to extend his arm in the air and grabbed the black-clothed young lady's shoulder. With a little force he pulled her back and said, "Feiyu, catch your little wife. Elder Master has arranged a marriage for you." Qin Feiyu was overjoyed and said, "Thank you, Elder Master." That big hand threw the black-clothed young lady over and Qin Feiyu stretched out his hand to catch her. That black-clothed young lady was motionless in the air. Obviously, her cultivation had been sealed. Nangong Shifeng continued to narrate. At this point his voice suddenly moved. Everyone's expression also became serious. They could tell from Nangong Shifeng's voice. Perhaps, if there were any unforeseen events, it would happen at this moment. Indeed, seeing that the black-clothed young lady was about to fall into Qin Feiyu's arms at this moment, a big white hand suddenly appeared and caught the black-clothed young lady in the air. In an instant, the black-clothed young lady was already 300 feet away and stood steadily. That white hand also disappeared immediately. That weird voice exclaimed and said, "I was wondering why this female was so arrogant. Turns out that she has a backer. Who is it? How dare you snatch someone from me, Qin Naiha? Stand out and let me take a look." But no one appeared. There was only a very clear voice with a hint of anger saying, "Qin Naiha, is this how your Qin family discipline your younger brothers?" When Nangong Shifeng said "till here," everyone started to guess. Who was this big white hand? That weird voice turned out to be called Qin Naiha. He said, "Who are you?" What does it have to do with you how I discipline my younger brothers? That clear voice said, that is to say, if your Qin family fancies any girl, the more unwilling she is, the more you will force her, right? Isn't that right? His voice was filled with killing intent. That weird voice said, why, do you have a problem with that? That clear voice said, yes, I have a big problem with that. This time, I didn't want to kill anyone from the Qin family. I only wanted to casually kill someone from a big clan. I didn't expect that you, Qin Naiha, actually sent yourself to me. You actually forced my disciple to be your great-grandson's concubine. If I don't kill you, I'll really feel a little embarrassed. Speaking till here, Nangong Shifeng's mouth and tongue were dry. Everyone was also a little shaken as they listened. They were all guessing in their hearts, who exactly was this person who spoke? From his tone, he should be the black-clothed girl's teacher. Moreover, he didn't take Qin Naiha seriously at all. In this case, he should be at least a supreme martial artist. Zhuge Shanyun's face suddenly changed and he said, casually kill someone from a big clan? What Zhuge Shanyun was concerned about was this sentence. Nangong Shifeng gulped down a few mouthfuls of water before he said, yes. Zhuge Shanyun's face darkened. Casually kill someone from a big clan? Definitely not casually, but an extreme expert from a big clan. In this case, this person's aim was actually the heaven-nourishing jade after the medicine banquet, and the supreme heaven-nourishing jade. Obviously he was here to sabotage? Nangong Shifeng continued, then a figure suddenly flashed and a man and a woman appeared in front of the Qin family's team. Both of them were dressed in snow-white clothes, and the woman was especially beautiful. When these two people appeared, the whole world seemed to have suddenly turned silver-white. The woman said lightly, Qin Naiha, I'm also quite good-looking. Do you want to snatch me and make me your great-grandson's concubine? Could it be the Moon Breeze Venerables? With a loud thud, everyone stood up in shock. Chapter 973. At this moment it really caused a huge uproar. No one expected that the people who suddenly appeared were Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro. And this lady in black, who caused such a huge incident, was actually Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro's younger brother. For a moment, everyone was so shocked that they were speechless. The former number 2 figure of the law enforcement officers. The highest level expert in the heaven. It was just that they didn't know when these two top experts actually took in disciples? They actually didn't know about it at all? They had to be careful now. They had to inform their clans as soon as possible that Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro's disciples were not to be trifled with. Once they were trifled with, Qin Naiha and the rest of the Qin family were examples of what would happen to them. Before the Qin family could do anything to his disciple, they had already been wiped out. If they really took his disciple back and cooked the rice, wouldn't their clan be annihilated? The Qin family was really unlucky this time. If they wanted to participate in the medicine banquet, they could have done so. If they wanted to train their younger brothers, they could have done so. But they had to flirt with women. It was fine if they flirted with women. If the elders didn't step in, there would still be room for negotiation. But they just had to help the younger generation bully others. It was fine if they helped the younger generation bully others, but the target of their bullying was actually Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro's disciples. This was an iron plate that had been kicked to the ground. In the current heaven there were a total of 5 huge iron plates. Whoever messed with them would be unlucky. The first iron plate was the Dharma Supreme. Messing with the Dharma Supreme was equivalent to messing with all the law enforcement officers in the entire heaven. He was the number 1 untouchable. The second iron plate was Ning Tianya. He was known as the number 1 expert in the world. The third iron plate was Bulu Qing. He was also known as the number 1 expert in the world. It was said that Ning Qinya and Bulu Qing had been fighting for 5,000 years because of this. The fourth iron plate was Yu Lingxue. That move of ice sealing 3,000 miles was enough to turn the entire territory of the Zhuge clan into ice sculptures. The fifth iron plate was Feng Yuro, Yu Lingxue's wife. 5 huge iron plates. It was universally acknowledged. It was bad enough that the Qin family kicked 1 iron plate. But they kicked 2 iron plates at the same time. And they were the most united ones. There was no cure for their luck. You've only offended Yu Lingxue and you can still beg Feng Yuro for help. If you had offended Feng Yuro, you could still go and kowtow to Yu Lingxue to apologize. Now it was the 2 of them. What happened after that? Zhuge Shanyun felt that his throat was a little dry. He couldn't help but drink a cup of tea before asking. After that, Qin Naiha seemed to be very surprised and said, "So it's Master Yu and Master Feng. I've been rude. It turns out that the 2 venerables have already taken in disciples. I have good intentions. Seeing that your disciple and my great-grandson are a match made in heaven, I wanted to play matchmaker and strengthen the relationship. Nangong Shifeng continued to narrate. Everyone's face darkened. Everyone says that Qin Naiha is crazy. I didn't believe it in the past. But now I finally believe it. He is definitely crazy. Furthermore, he was a deranged lunatic. You flirted with someone else's disciple and got caught red-handed. How could you still say such brainless words? Moreover, the other party was a place that they absolutely couldn't afford to offend. If you're not blinded by lard, then what is? Who is your great-grandson? Who was Master Yu's younger brother? You actually want to play matchmaker? Play matchmaker. It seemed that not only did this fellow suffer from Qigong deviation during cultivation, but he also turned himself into a fool during the subsequent closed-door training. But everyone also understood. Qin Naiha had been in closed-door training for more than 1,000 years. He was already somewhat out of touch with this world. This time he naturally wanted to regain his former glory. Moreover, if he immediately kowtowed and begged for mercy in front of his great-grandson, that would be too embarrassing. Moreover, he was from the Qin clan, a mid-stage supreme martial artist. According to common sense, no matter what, Yu Lingxue had to give him face. Therefore, there was nothing wrong with him saying something that sounded fierce and cowardly at heart. Moreover, Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro were law enforcement officers. They couldn't possibly start a war with the big clans first, right? This was what Qin Naiha relied on. But this fellow was destined to be a tragedy. Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro no longer belonged to the law enforcement officers now. Therefore, although Qin Naiha's words were the root of the trouble, it also became Nangong Shifeng's capital for his cheap mouth. Because this was how this fellow boasted. If I had kowtowed and begged for mercy, I wouldn't have died, Nangong Shifeng continued. Then Master Yu Lingxue said, "Bullshit. What kind of bastard is that great-grandson of yours? How can he be compared with my disciple? Just this sentence alone is enough for you to be sentenced to death." Hearing this, everyone was speechless. Master Yu's speaking skills had improved. For others to compare his disciple with his juniors, it was already a capital offense. Master Feng Yuro said, "Qin Feiyu bullied and took liberties with women, a capital offense. The one he took liberties with was actually my disciple, a crime on top of a crime." Forget about the capital offense, but taking liberties with your disciple was a crime on top of a crime. What crime on top of a crime on top of a crime on top of a crime? Moreover, she spoke like a law enforcement officer. Everyone was even more speechless. Master Yu Lingxue continued, "Qin Naiha is deranged. Not only did he not stop his juniors from committing crimes, he even connived at them. This is another capital offense. Everyone in the Qin clan present did not stop him and just watched. This is connivance, instigation, and helping the villain do evil. This is a crime that even death cannot wipe out. This is a crime that deserves 1,000 deaths. This is also a capital offense. Hence, Master Feng Yuro declared, in summary, everyone in the Qin clan deserves to die. After killing all of you, I'll go and settle accounts with the Qin clan." Then 2 white figures suddenly flew up and started a massacre. Nangong Shifeng was already sweating profusely when he said this. Everyone was also trembling and sweating profusely when they heard this. This massacre was truly without any reason. Not only did they kill people, they even wanted to go to the Qin clan to settle accounts. As soon as the 2 venerables attacked, the people of the Qin clan fell. Suddenly, a long howl was heard, and a strange person covered in black soared into the sky. He said in midair, "2 venerables, is my Qin clan so shameless?" Master Yu Lingxue said, "If your Qin clan is shameless, then what face do I have?" He actually started a massacre just like that. Everyone stamped their feet and sighed. Yes, if the Qin clan was shameless, Yu Lingxue's disciple would become their concubine. What face would they have? For this Qin Naiha to be so retarded to such an extent, he truly deserved to die. That strange man roared and said, "Everyone run for your lives. Report back to the clan." Instantly, 5 figures fled in 5 different directions. Master Yu Lingxue said coldly, "Still want to escape? 3,000 miles of ice." With a loud shout, the entire space outside the city gate suddenly turned into a huge block of ice. The few figures who flew out were all frozen inside. They couldn't move at all. Then, as Venerable Yu Lingxue walked forward, he said, "My good disciple, you see, to deal with such evil people, you have to use the cruelest and most efficient method. If you can kill them as quickly as possible, then kill them as quickly as possible." As he said this, he walked into the ice and crushed a person's neck with one hand. That girl in black followed behind him and said, "Master is right." While they were talking, Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro had already killed everyone present, leaving only Qin Feiyu. Master Yu Lingxue said, Tell me, how should we deal with this scum? That girl in black said, your disciple has always killed such scum with a sword. Master Yu Lingxue shook his head and smiled, not enough. It's not enough. To deal with such scum, we have to make him unable to be a human for generations. The girl in black said, what should we do? Master Yu said, destroy his body and soul. As he said this, he slapped down and that Chen Feiyu turned into nothingness, turning into a black hole. Then the black hole disappeared after a while. At this point, everyone present shivered slightly. Especially when Nangong Shifeng said this, his eyes were intentionally or unintentionally looking at Yi Shiyu. Yi Shiyu's face instantly turned pale, as if Yu Lingxue was talking about him. Master Feng waved his long sleeves and the people of the Chen clan flew to an unknown place, together with their horses. Then he walked over and complained, you're too much. There are so many of them and they're from big clans. Don't you know how to avoid them first? Why are you still fighting with them? That girl in black said, Master, I don't want to provoke them. But since this Chen Feiyu dared to provoke me, he definitely dares to provoke other girls. If other girls don't have any background, wouldn't they be trampled on and tortured by him? I don't want to let such scum go. So I must kill him. Master Feng said, but you know that you're no match for him, how can you kill him? That girl in black said, when things get serious, Master will naturally come out. My two masters are following behind me and I understand their intentions. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dared to be so reckless as to provoke these vicious people. My original intention is to ask Master to execute a thunderous method to get rid of this bunch of scum. At this point, everyone was suddenly enlightened and let out an oh. No wonder this girl in black rushed back to question them even though she knew that there were so many of them and that she couldn't afford to provoke them. It turned out that she was fearlessly using someone else to do the dirty work. But this person who was using someone else was extremely powerful. The scheming methods of this girl in black really shouldn't be underestimated. Master Feng said, haha, you little girl, you're really scheming. Quickly enter the city. Tell the Zhuge clan to behave themselves in the medicine banquet. Don't offend my disciple. If we're in a good mood, we'll go and have a chat with their elder master. If we're in a bad mood, we'll also go and have a chat with their elder master. Nangong Shifeng's narration was about to come to an end. However, when he finished his narration, Zhuge Shanyun's face started to sweat and his expression changed. His stern face instantly turned into the color of a bitter gourd. Chapter 974. Ever since Zhuge Shanyun took over as the clan master, he had never felt so uncomfortable. Looks like this disciple of Master Feng and Master Yu actually came for the medicine banquet? At such a critical juncture, such a little ancestor had graced them with her presence. How could they not be able to survive? Right now, Qinji City is filled with all sorts of people. All the young talents of the major clans are gathered here. Your disciple is good-looking. Who can stop someone from hitting on her? Besides, if you're in a good mood, it's understandable for you to come and talk to me. But you actually came even when you're in a bad mood. Then, are you in a good mood now? Or is it bad? Should I hope that you're in a good mood? Or is it bad? Everyone looked at Zhuge Shanyun with pity, thinking, this time the Zhuge clan is in big trouble. But everyone had their own thoughts. If one looked at this matter roughly, they might think that these people from the Qin clan were really too weak. They were actually wiped out in 1 or 2 moves. They didn't even make any noise. But only those who were familiar with the inside story would know. How could the people from the Qin clan be considered weak? An extreme level expert, more than 100 monarch level and saint level experts, and 4 supreme level experts. Such a force couldn't be considered weak anywhere. But when they met Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro, they were all wiped out in just 1 breath. What did this mean? Zhuge Shanyun's expression changed a few times. Finally, he calmed himself down and said, what's next? His voice was already extremely dry. Nangong Shifeng's face revealed an incredulous expression and said, next? At this moment a voice said, not bad indeed. Are you interested in fighting with me? Before I could finish my sentence, I saw a white figure charge out of the city. It was blurry and ethereal. It seemed to be a woman and she was carrying someone on her back. But when she appeared, the faces of Master Yu and Master Feng suddenly became heavy. That white figure was like a shooting star. She passed by the 2 of them and said, follow me, let's fight. Then she disappeared with a swoosh. After the initial shock, everyone was even more shocked and confused. The appearance of Master Feng and Master Yu was already shocking enough. Then who was this woman in white who appeared later? The Moon Breeze Supremacy had solemn expressions and said, little girl, you enter the city first. The 2 of us will go and meet her. Then he turned to my direction and said, Little. Tell the Zhuge clan that if they dare to bully my disciple, I'll teach them a lesson. Then the two of them flew up and disappeared without a trace. It turns out that they knew I was watching from the side all along. Nangong Shifeng finally finished his words. His mouth was dry. The hall was completely silent. Shocking. Unbelievable. All sorts of emotions filled everyone's hearts. There was actually such a thing in the world. The last sentence of Venerable Feng and Venerable Yu was especially earth-shattering. None of them were stupid. Their last words were, "Lass, you go into the city first. The two of us will go and meet her." Attention. The phrase here is the two of us are going to meet her. Not, I'm going to meet her. Moreover, before that, he would let his disciple enter the city first and not bring him along with him. What did this mean? Everyone's hearts were filled with shock. This meant that Supremacy Feng and Supremacy Yu needed to work together to deal with this person. Moreover, even with the husband and wife working together, they still did not have the confidence to protect their disciple in the battle. Who was this girl in white? How scary was she? That was really imaginable. The hall was completely silent. After a long while, Zhuge Shanyun asked slowly, "Is there anything else?" Everyone's gaze fell on Nangong Shifeng again. Nangong Shifeng shook his head honestly and said, "There's nothing else. Since that's the case, you can leave." Zhuge Shanyun instructed, "Give him 50 purple crystals and send him out properly." A girl in white at the side agreed and walked out with Nangong Shifeng, bringing along a whiff of fragrance. When they were about to leave, Chuyang suddenly raised his voice and said, "Oh yes, is this called Nangong Shifeng?" Nangong Shifeng was about to step out of the door. He was startled and turned back saying, "You are?" Chuyang smiled and said, "I'm a pharmacist from the southeast. Before I came out from Flat Mountain Ridge, an old friend of Brother Nangong asked me to pass you something. If Brother Nangong has nothing else to do, you can wait for me outside for a while." Nangong Shifeng's eyes lit up and he said, "Thank you very much. Since that's the case, I'll wait for you at Shuiyu Lake." He was also experienced in the martial world. He knew that his boss, who had benefited from his misfortune, had sent someone here. At this moment he was extremely excited, but he didn't show it on his face. Seeing Nangong Shifeng walk out, Chuyang also sat down. Yi Shiyu coughed and said, "Brother Chu, is this person related to you?" Chuyang said affectionately, "Little Yu, stop." Yi Shiyu hurriedly stretched out his hand and stopped Chuyang. "Alright, I won't ask any more." His expression was already very interesting. The burly man beside him, Yi Shifeng, also couldn't help but want to laugh even though it was such a serious occasion. Although he was in such a mood, he looked at Chuyang with a trace of killing intent. Chuyang lowered his head, but his sharp divine sense sensed this trace of killing intent. He couldn't help but feel strange. Is this bastard crazy? I didn't offend him. "Clanmaster Zhuge, do you still want to go and take a look at the scene?" Muyu asked solemnly. "It's useless to go and take a look now." Zhuge Shanyun smiled bitterly and said, "Let's talk about the proper business." Muyu and Yuan Jinbao nodded, then motioned for the pharmacist beside them to leave. The pharmacists from the Ling clan and Yi clan also left. But Han Xiaoren didn't take any action. Muyu frowned and said, "Brother Han Yu?" Han Xiaoren said lightly, "This Dr. Chu is also my brother. Don't suspect those you use, don't use those you don't trust. I believe in my brother. Besides, he'll be a key figure in this medicine banquet. There's no harm in him staying here to listen." "Key figure?" "Ah." Muyu sneered. Just as he was about to speak, Zhuge Shanyun said, "Dr. Chu can stay here." He looked at Chuyang with a kind gaze and said lightly, "I've heard of the black-hearted saint's name for a long time." Chuyang's heart trembled. This clan master of one of the big clans actually knows about me? He smiled bitterly and said, "Clan Master Zhuge, you're exaggerating." Now there was only one person left in the room. Zhuge Shanyun, Han Xiaoren, Chuyang, Muyu, Yuan Jinbao, Ling Hanwu, Ling Hanxue, Yi Shifeng and Yi Shiyu. But Zhuge Shanyun didn't speak anymore. The hall quietened down. Then the sound of footsteps could be heard from the stairs. Countless delicacies and wines were served up like flowing water. Everyone's seats were filled with food. There were even fresh fruits and other things. After a while, Zhuge Shanyun clapped his hands and all the servants left the room. The door was closed. 4 black figures appeared. Then they went out in 4 directions. Then, Supreme Martial Artist Sigu's divine sense shrouded the room at the top of the Shuiyu Tower in the middle of the lake from top to bottom with his divine sense. Unless the person outside was a 3rd-grade Supreme Martial Artist or above, he or she might be able to eavesdrop on the conversation. If the person's cultivation was lower than that, it wouldn't be of any use even if he or she put their ears on the conversation. Even the 4 supreme martial artists who set up the divine sense couldn't hear what was being said inside because they were restraining each other. Zhuge Shanyun's eyes flickered. His fingers tapped on the table lightly, but he still didn't speak. After a long while, someone outside said, "Clan Master, the Shueyu Tower has been emptied. Our people are all on the White Jade Bridge. The third elder has also sealed off the bridge. There are also 48 martial saints under the water." Zhuge Shanyun said lightly, "Got it?" Then there was silence outside. Chu Yang's heart thumped. He knew that today's event wouldn't be as simple as drinking wine. But he didn't expect that the Zhuge clan would make such a big fuss for this event. What's so important about it? Why do they have to be so cautious? Zhuge Shanyun's face softened. He invited, "The night is long. We still have time. Let's talk while we eat." Everyone laughed and started to eat and drink. Zhuge Shanyun raised his wine cup and smiled lightly. "Now that we're not outsiders, I'll be direct. This medicine banquet is the most important one in the heavens for the past 10,000 years. And it's our Zhuge clan's turn again?" Everyone was eating and drinking. They didn't seem to be paying attention to what he said. However, everyone knew that they were all listening intently to Zhuge Shanyun's words. Every word that Zhuge Shanyun said had entered their ears. Moreover, they were automatically able to understand many meanings. This medicine banquet is the time when the Tribulation Sword Master will be born. So, it's very significant. And it's different from the past. Even within our clan there are many. For example, the Li clan. Zhuge Shanyun's voice was very gentle. He continued, "And everyone knows that Master Yu and Master Feng have already left the law enforcement officers. They've become free men. And the reason why they left the law enforcement officers is because of the Tribulation Sword Master." Chu Yang's heart shook. His heart skipped a beat. Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro left the law enforcement officers because of the Tribulation Sword Master? His heart skipped a beat. Instantly, 8 pairs of eyes looked towards him. Chu Yang couldn't help but smile bitterly. This bunch of people are really attentive and meticulous. My heart skipped a beat and it immediately attracted their attention. "Dr. Chu, are you very surprised?" Zhuge Shanyun asked lightly. "Yes, Tribulation Sword Master. When I heard these words, I couldn't help but feel excited." Chu Yang smiled calmly and said, "Master Zhuge, please don't laugh at me." Zhuge Shanyun laughed and said, "It's okay." Then he said, "And judging from today, Master Yu and Master Feng have already arrived at Tianji City. They destroyed the Chen clan's delegation in one move. On the surface, it seems that they're avenging their disciples, but everyone knows their real purpose." Chapter 975. Their real purpose is to destroy Venerable Mending the Heavens. Everyone in the hall sighed as soon as these words came out. They didn't even have the mood to drink and eat anymore. Only Chu Yang was left to chew on the table. Because he didn't know what Venerable Mending the Heavens meant. The medicine banquet is to refine the heaven-nourishing jade, and the purpose of refining the heaven-nourishing jade is to deal with the Tribulation Sword Master. After the heaven-nourishing jade is refined, each high-level supreme martial artist would use different techniques to send the heaven-nourishing jade to a certain place. Then, the one with the highest level of cultivation would replace the heaven-nourishing jade. This person would be the Dharma Supreme. Han Xiaoran knew that Chu Yang didn't understand, so he explained to him in detail. "But why can this heaven-nourishing jade deal with the Tribulation Sword Master?" Chu Yang was confused. "No, according to legend, the mission of the Tribulation Sword Master is to mend the heavens, and the heaven-nourishing jade, to a certain extent, has the effect of tribulation. So, if the heavens are fixed before the Tribulation Sword Master mends the heavens, then it can destroy the destiny of the Tribulation Sword Master." Han Xiaoran said. "Oh, I see." Chu Yang was enlightened. He praised, "Brilliant plan." Han Xiaoran sighed and murmured, "Moon Breeze Supremacy is the most respected person in my life." After saying that, he fell silent. After a long while, he shook his head sadly. Zhuge Shanyun said, "Since the Moon Breeze Supremacy is involved in this matter, then we can't make the decision now. The original plan has to be changed. We can only forget about what we wanted to discuss previously. Now, what we need to discuss is how to continue the medicine banquet and Venerable Mending the Heavens." Everyone nodded slowly, their faces heavy. Zhuge Shanyun pondered for a while and said, "The original plan was for the Zhuge clan to be in charge, while the Dharma Supreme and the Supreme Martial Artists would appear at the end to make a crucial gamble. But obviously it's no longer applicable now." He smiled bitterly and said, "The 2 elder masters of the Zhuge clan have been in seclusion for thousands of years. They won't come out easily. And, even if they come out, I'm afraid They won't be a match for the Moon Breeze supremacy. I can only try my best. As he said that, Zhuge Shanyun looked at the two from the Ling clan and the two from the Yi clan. The four was silent. Hanwu, who is the supreme martial artist from your Ling clan who has come to replenish the heavens this time? Zhuge Shanyun's eyes flashed with displeasure. Obviously, he was dissatisfied with the silence of the four people. However, it only lasted for a moment before he asked with a pleasant expression. It's seventh ancestor. There was a hint of respect on Ling Hanwu's face as he said, his cultivation is now at the peak of middle-grade supreme martial artist. Chu Yang's heart stirred. It turned out that there was a hidden expert in the Ling family's team. It was rare for this expert to be so well-mannered. Back then, the three supreme martial artists were tortured by Zi Sheqing until their faces were covered in dirt, yet they could actually hold themselves back and not appear. Zhuge Shanyun shook his head slowly and asked, the seventh ancestor's cultivation is naturally shocking. If it was in the past it would be enough. But now that the Moon Breeze couple had interfered, Hanwu, what do you think about the chances of seventh forefather and the others winning? Ling Hanwu shook his head slowly. I'm no match for him. There's still time. We can make it in time. Zhuge Shanyun said, we must change the commander at the last minute. Ling Hanwu nodded slowly. Zhuge Shanyun smiled slightly and turned to the Yi brothers. Shifeng Xiu, who's the person from the Yi clan? Yi Shifeng laughed and said, it's fourth ancestor Yi Zhangzue. He's also at the peak of middle-grade supreme martial artist. Yi Zhangzue. Zhuge Shanyun frowned. Yi Xiu said softly, however, it's said that the elder ancestor will also make a trip here. Zhuge Shanyun's expression changed. He said, then it's fine. He turned to Han Xiaoran and the other two and said, law enforcement masters, I'll send a letter to the other big clans to ask them to change their candidates. The three law enforcement masters should also inform the Dharma Supreme to make early arrangements. This concerns the fate of the heavens, we mustn't be careless. Mu Yu and Yuan Jinbao nodded repeatedly and their eyes flickered. Han Xiaoran's face was cold and stiff. He sighed deeply and kept silent. Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro were the people he respected the most. However, it seemed that they were already on different paths. Although the Tribulation Sword Master hadn't appeared yet, the two of them were already working hard for the fate of the Tribulation. Perhaps it wasn't the time to fight to the death yet. After all, even the Dharma Supreme didn't want to have enemies like Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro. However, once the Tribulation Sword Master appeared, it would be a battle of life and death. A battle of life and death was inevitable. Han Xiaoran's heart was filled with emotions. Will the Li clan send someone over this time? Mu Yu frowned and asked. This. Yuan Jinbao touched his chin and said, it's really hard to say. However, the situation isn't clear yet. The Li clan should be here, right? However, who's the girl in white that just appeared? Zhuge Shanyun frowned and said, why is the medicine banquet so strange this time? It's simply a gathering of the wind and clouds. Does anyone have any news about this girl in white? Or have you heard of her? The others shook their heads and their faces were blank. Ling Hanwu and Ling Hanxue looked at Chu Yang. The two of them were confident that the girl was probably Zi Sheqing, the missy that was with Chu Yang. She was also the concubine that Chu Yang mentioned earlier. Zhuge Shanyun was very smart. He looked at Chu Yang with a smile and said, Special Envoy Chu? Chu Yang pondered and said, according to what Nangong Shifeng said, the girl in white that just appeared, I feel vaguely familiar. Everyone turned to look at him. Familiar? Zhuge Shanyun was shocked. Yes, according to the description, she seems to be my concubine. Chu Yang touched his nose embarrassedly and said, cough cough, concubine. Fuck. Mu Yu, Yi Shifeng and Yi Xiu scolded at the same time. Yuan Jinbao's face was also distorted by Zhuge Shanyun. He stared at Chu Yang as if he wanted to eat him up. Han Xiaoran smiled bitterly and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This guy really dared to say that. That was an extremely powerful person who dared to challenge Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro alone. Your concubine? Concubine? Damn it, it's really a miracle that your tongue hasn't been blown away by the wind. Cough cough. But, Brother Chu's concubine's cultivation is indeed very high. Ling Hanxue said as she rolled her eyes. Yes, let's stop this topic. Muyu stretched out his hand and stopped her. He said unhappily, Niece Hanxue, this matter. There's no need to discuss it. Little Hu is bragging. He doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. What do you mean by, his little wife? Isn't he afraid that the wind will cut his tongue? Why doesn't he say that he is the master of Tribulation Sword? As soon as this sentence came out, everyone immediately burst into laughter. Zhuge Shanyun smiled and said, "Who is this mysterious powerful person? Let me do a divination." As he said, he sat down cross-legged and took out a few copper coins. He tossed them on the table 3 times. The last time. Out of the 10 copper coins, 8 of them were facing up. The last one rolled off the table and stood up after it spun 2 rounds on the ground. Zhuge Shanyun was surprised. "What's the situation?" everyone asked. "The starry sky is bright and the sky is moving. It's actually an illusory image. I can't tell its origin. It's unpredictable. Finally, it's a shooting star across the sky. It actually shows the image of a visitor from outer space. How can this be?" Zhuge Shanyun shook his head and looked at the table suspiciously. Did something go wrong? Why would such a divination appear? "This divination is a little ridiculous," Mu Yu said seriously, "but since this powerful person chose Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro, they should. Even if they're not friends, they shouldn't be enemies either." "I hope so." Zhuge Shanyun sighed with melancholy and said, "It's really untimely. Strange things happen when it's our turn. Li clan's attitude is ambiguous. Moon Breeze came here. The entire Qin clan was annihilated, and now a mysterious expert has appeared. Sai, if Supreme Martial Artist Ning and Supreme Martial Artist Bu were to come again, I really don't know if my Qinji city would be able to withstand the torment. Haha, now there's Moon Breeze supremacy and the mysterious female third brother. If Supreme Martial Artist Ning and Supreme Martial Artist Bu come again, there'll be 4. The Dharma Supreme will of course rush over, so there will be 5 Supreme Dao experts. Since the elder ancestor of the Yi clan, Lord Yi Di, has decided to make a move, then the elder ancestor of the Shao clan, Lord Shao Se, will not be idle either. In addition, countless supreme martial artists from various clans have gathered. I reckon that even if they extend their legs and hold hands in your Qinji city, there will be nothing left." Muyu couldn't help but laugh. Zhuge Shanyun also laughed. "But that's usually impossible. If all the supreme martial artists gather here, then even if our Qinji city is destroyed, it'll be an honor." After saying this, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. A faint sense of uneasiness suddenly shrouded his heart. Instantly he regretted what he said just now. Yuan Jinbao suddenly thought of something and said, "The Moon Breeze supremacy must have taken in a disciple to prepare for the great battle in the future. They must have been prepared to fight to the death. That's why they took in a disciple in advance and passed down their legacy." Once this sentence was said, everyone's expression became heavy. They didn't think about this previously, but now that they thought about it, it was really possible. Yi Shifeng laughed and said, "Even the Moon Breeze supremacy have a disciple. I really don't know if Supreme Martial Artist Ning and Supreme Martial Artist Bu will have a disciple too? It can't be that all the Supreme Martial Artists will take in disciples together, right? Then it'll really be a grand occasion of a change of dynasty." The corner of Chu Yang's mouth twitched, then twitched again and finally twitched again. "Cough cough my Qingguo." At the end of the conversation they also discussed some other things. After dinner, Zhuge Shanyun invited them. "Law enforcement masters, are you interested in having some tea with me? How about a game of chess while you're at it?" The 3 of them gladly agreed. Yi Shiyu, Chu Yang and the rest knew that Zhuge Shanyun's invitation was really related to the most important secrets. They tactfully took their leave. Everyone parted ways at the end of the White Jade Bridge. After Chu Yang and Ling Hanwu parted ways, just as he was about to say goodbye to Yi Shiyu, he saw that Yi Shiyu had already disappeared without a trace. Chu Yang laughed complacently and walked towards the place where he and Nangong Shifeng had agreed to meet. In front of the Shuiyu Lake, it was already late at night, but there were still people coming and going. The lake's surface was illuminated by the lights, and the scenery was extremely magnificent. Chu Yang admired the scenery as he walked. But he didn't notice that among the crowd behind him, there was a slim figure in black who saw him. Immediately after, she stood there as if she had been electrocuted. Then, her eyes were suddenly filled with tears. "I've seen you thousands of times in my dreams. Now, you're at this place where the lights are waning." Chapter 976. Shuiyu Tower, Shuiyu Lake. Shuiyu Tower was brightly lit, surrounded by neon lights. The water surface was steaming, the sky was misty, and the moon was vaguely visible. The light shone on the surface of the lake that was shrouded in mist. Vaguely, along with the floating water, it expanded into 10,000 swaying light rays. It was as if a young girl's heart was trembling intensely, but it was shrinking. On the White Jade Bridge, Chu Yang, dressed in a black robe, walked down the bridge. He paused slightly and tilted his head to confirm the direction where Nangong Shifeng was waiting for him. Then he walked over. Under the flickering lights, half of his handsome face was exposed under the neon lights, and the other half was hidden in the shadows. Looking from the side, one could only see his eyes, which were as deep as the cold pond in autumn. But at the moment when Chuyang took this step and tilted his head, a woman in black was right behind him. He saw this face at a glance. In an instant, it was as if all the thunderbolts and lightning in the sky were wedged into his heart at the same time. For a moment, his mind was in chaos. His ears seemed to be buzzing and he saw stars. In an instant he lost the ability to speak and move and stood there in a daze. At this moment the world seemed to be still. Chuyang, I finally saw you. Under the black robe, her delicate body was trembling rapidly. Behind the black veil, 2 lines of tears flowed slowly. She tried hard to take a step to the right, and hurriedly reached out to hold on to a big tree beside her. She was afraid that she would collapse to the ground at this moment. I cultivated desperately, I rushed into the upper 3 heavens recklessly, I trained myself with all my might just to see you again. Just to be able to follow in your footsteps. You have already gone too far. Wu Qianshan's eyes were hazy with tears. Her slender jade-like hands unconsciously stroked the hem of her black robe. There were a few words there. Chuyang, Qianshan likes you. Her teary eyes were fixed on Chuyang. The hem of Chuyang's black robe. That was the same position. Even though it was in a dark place. There was only a faint light. Even though her eyes were hazy with tears, she could still recognize at a glance. This black robe was sewn by her. In that same position there would definitely be his hair in those words. Chuyang, Qianshan likes you. This was because Chuyang's black robe would not refract light no matter where he was. Ordinary black robes were at the stitches. As long as the position on the side of the body was turned, as long as there was light nearby, it would reflect a faint light. However, every time Wu Qianshan made a black robe, she would gently abrade these areas. Although this kind of wear and tear could not be seen, it could avoid that kind of situation. Because when he roamed the Jianghu, it was a scene of carnage and unpredictability. Since he liked black robe. That meant, he often moves at night. If he could avoid all this, he would be much safer. At this moment, all of the past, all of the things that had happened, all of them flashed through her heart like lightning. When I first met you at Beyond the Heavens sect, you concealed your strength and bided your time. At that time, I only treated you as my junior brother. When they met again in Iron Cloud. You have already become a powerful person who can make even the Empress of the state look askance. In just a few short days he had entered Heaven Mending Pavilion and became the king of hell who controlled life and death. From then on, I was by your side taking care of all the trivial matters for you. You are cruel, ruthless, and decisive. Your wisdom is as deep as the sea and your heart is like a dragon. It is as if all the problems in front of you are not a problem. But you are also as meticulous as hair. Sometimes you are so gentle that it makes people intoxicated, and sometimes you are so silent that it makes people's hearts ache. You struggle between life and death and you are weak and small. But when you face your own people, you will never say a word of hardship. Normally, when you are angry at your own people, when you punish them, it is when you are in a good mood. Previously, I was very indifferent to you and then I was very curious about you. I was curious about how you entered Heaven Mending Pavilion at such a young age. Then, I did not understand you at all and found out that you have so many good points. Do you know that women like this kind of man the most? No matter how much pressure you bear from heaven and earth, no matter how crazy the storm is in front of you, when you turn around and face your loved ones, you are relaxed and have the pearl of wisdom in your hands. You have a calm and gentle face. In a woman's life, she just needs someone to rely on. It is this kind of man who can give a woman the greatest sense of security. Even if she knew that she was about to be destroyed, with such a man by her side, she would not panic. Then, with your own strength, you sneaked into Great Zhao and with a wave of your hand you created chaos in Great Zhao. You fled for thousands of miles until you came back and immediately joined the war. But during this process you did not say a single word. No one could have imagined that you alone faced the encirclement and interception of an entire country of Great Zhao. Facing the pursuit of the Golden Horse Riders Department, which was thousands of times stronger than you, how did you survive? But you did it. After you created this miracle, you immediately created an even bigger miracle. You established yourself in the weak Iron Cloud and hundreds of powerful Great Zhao. That day the world was dyed red with blood. But the next morning before we could celebrate you left. You left quietly, you had your own pursuits. So, you did not even spare a glance for the glorious era that you created. With your power at that time, as long as you said a word, the entire lower 3 heavens would have chosen for you alone. But you did not do so because you had your own lover. So, you did not spare a glance for the thousands of beauties in the lower 3 heavens. Even when I was in front of you every day, you did not even spare me a glance. But do you know what a fatal attraction it is to other girls because of your persistence and your deep affection for others, and your unwavering devotion to others? You left, but you took my heart with you. That black robe became my everything. Every time I put on that mask, it was as if you were still by my side. In the face of your deep affection for that woman I've never met before, I actually didn't dare to reveal my heart. I could only silently look at you. I could only silently like you. I liked you in my heart in my own way. I did not want to destroy your persistence. But you also could not control my heart. A woman's heart is devoted to her whole life. But when the most beautiful and sacred love of a woman's life can only exist in her imagination. Jianghu, do you know the sorrow in my heart? You don't know, right? Maybe you know, but you will never say it. Now I am here and I see you. You are under the neon lights. 7 colors. I am still behind you in the shadows. Wu Qianqian tightly covered her mouth. She tried her best to control the trembling of her body. She did not allow herself to make the slightest movement. She only foolishly looked at the black-robed figure in front of her. I came to the upper 3 heavens with untold hardships. My original intention was to look at him from afar. But why did my heart hurt even more after seeing him? Why did my feelings become even stronger? I should be satisfied after seeing him. But why did I become even more greedy at this moment? I still want to see him. I still want to see him. I haven't seen him enough. I want to see his embrace. I want to rush over and throw myself into him. He has not even hugged me once. Chuyang was walking forward when he suddenly felt something strange. It seemed as if a pair of eyes were looking at him sadly. He could not help but be startled. He paused and turned his head to look. Wu Qianqian saw him pause and knew that he was going to turn back. She did not know why. Suddenly she panicked. She hid behind a big tree like lightning. Chuyang turned his head and saw a few people passing by in the distance. Then he saw a dark night. He could not help but smile bitterly. He thought to himself, am I being paranoid? He turned and walked away. Wu Qianqian calmed her heartbeat behind the tree. Then she could not bear to leave and followed him again. Wu Qianqian was probably the best at following Chuyang in the world. She knew Chuyang's habits. Chuyang had also mentioned before about following people. When following Chuyang, one must not focus on Chuyang. One must focus on other people or other targets. Once one's attention was focused on Chuyang, one would be immediately discovered by him. In another direction. The 2 brothers, Yi Shifeng and Yi Xiu, walked together in silence. Why are you so afraid of that little guy? Yi Shifeng suddenly asked. His tone is obviously intentional. He wants to make you feel disgusted so that you can control him. Can't you tell? Yi Xiu was silent. He said, I know, but I still feel a chill down my spine. Yi Shifeng snorted and said, I don't like that little guy. He's asking for death by making fun of the Yi clan. That little guy is not easy to deal with. Yi Xiu frowned. Now he did not sound like a sissy at all. Yi Shifeng's rough face revealed a trace of brutality. He said, not easy to deal with? Let me find out his background. Yi Xiu was silent for a long time. He said, find out his background, that's good too. But this person is mysterious and unpredictable. Don't make things too awkward between us. Make sure that the people who go don't reveal their identities. Yi Shifeng smiled coldly. I know. I'll send 2 martial saints. If they can kill him, they'll kill him directly. If not, we'll find out his background. Be careful of Han Xiaoran. Yi Xiu reminded. Nangong Shifeng was sitting under a tree. There was a jar of wine beside his feet and a braised chicken beside him. From time to time, he would raise his head and gulp down a mouthful of wine. Then he would let out a tisk sound and exhale. Nangong? Chuyang appeared in front of him like a ghost. It's the male. Nangong Shifeng hurriedly wiped the wine from the corner of his mouth and stood up. As he said, he looked at Chuyang's hand. Chuyang understood what he meant. He laughed and took out a broken sword from his chest. He passed it to Nangong Shifeng and said, take a look. Is this right? Nangong Shifeng laughed and took out a broken sword from his chest. The 2 broken sword pieces were placed together and they fit together perfectly. He couldn't help but get excited. He asked impatiently, where's my boss? Chuyang said lightly, I don't know where he is. But, do you still remember the words he said to you? Nangong Shifeng smiled flatteringly and said, of course, of course. Chuyang nodded and said slowly, I'm Chuyang. I have a nickname in the southeast, Black-Hearted Saint. Do you understand what I mean? Nangong Shifeng's eyes lit up. He nodded like a chicken pecking rice. The information I need you to find out is, All the pharmacists who came to Tianji City, their influence, strength, names, medicinal herbs. Find out as much as you can. Normally, report to me once every 3 days. If there's an emergency, you can report to me anytime. Chu Yang transmitted his voice slowly. Nangong Shifeng puffed out his chest. I live in the Orchard Palace, Chu Yang said lightly. Write down everything you know about the medicine banquet as well, Chu Yang instructed. Chu Yang could only understand the medicine banquet in this way since he didn't have the chance to come in contact with it for the time being. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if he attracted attention. Nangong Shifeng agreed and left. Yi Shiyu was still nearby. Nangong Shifeng didn't dare to stay for long, for fear of meeting this little devil again. Chu Yang sat down, hugged his knees and looked at the water surface. Looking at the neon water, he thought of his own power of gentle water. Suddenly he felt a little sentimental. I added some sentiments in this chapter. I don't know if everyone likes it, so I'll give you an extra 400 words. Gee, today is Teacher's Day. I wish all my friends who are teachers a happy holiday. Gee, I didn't expect to be the first on the recommendation list. This is an honor that I've never had since I started writing books. Brothers and sisters, I love all of you so much. I'll give everyone a kiss, both male and female. Everyone keep it up. Wow. I'm so happy. Thank you, ha ha ha. Chapter 977. Chu Yang suddenly thought of something. What if his soft water sword essence was like the water in front of him? The water was clear and colorless, but after the refraction of light, the water was colorful. What if the soft water sword essence was added to it? Wouldn't it dazzle the enemy? But how could he make his sword possess such a characteristic? Chu Yang frowned, looking at the lake in front of him. He gazed deeply and fell into deep thought for a long time. Ever since this thought arose, he immediately felt that this was a kind of opportunity, a kind of enlightenment. He had to strike while the iron was hot and straighten out this thought before he could consolidate it. Otherwise, he was afraid that if he encountered something, this sudden idea would be washed away without a trace, and he might not think of it again for the rest of his life. So he couldn't care about anything else and fell into meditation here. He sat there quietly, motionless. The water in front of him was rippling up and down. The gentle sound of the waves was ringing in his ears. But at this moment, it was as far away as the horizon to Chu Yang. Behind him, behind a big tree, a slim figure in black stood quietly, looking at Chu Yang, who was meditating. Her eyes were filled with tenderness and she was actually mesmerized. One was immersed in meditation as if intoxicated, while the other was filled with tenderness and love. One was sitting, one was standing, and both were motionless. If someone saw this, they would definitely find this tenderness and warmth that was enough to make one's heart tremble. But it was already late at night and there were very few people here. The two of them stayed quietly like this. One had a heart. The other had no intention. Wu Qianshan seemed to hear a faint song in her ears. It was the song This Life, Previous Lives. She couldn't help but tear up again. Perhaps I owed you in my previous life? To have met you in this life, perhaps you loved me too much in my previous life, and I didn't cherish you. To have met you again in this life, I've tasted the pain you went through in your previous life. My tenderness was like water, only for you, but your heart was like stone, and you didn't care at all. I looked forward to it and hoped for it. Your steps were hurried. Crossing thousands of miles. You didn't miss me in your previous life. I will make it up to you in this lifetime. But this lovesickness, 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 this lovesickness. I don't know what's so good about you that I don't care about my body at all. I don't know where your love lies, but I have no regrets in my heart. After making up for it in this lifetime, would this affection continue? After making up for it in this lifetime, how could this affection continue? If this affection can continue, I'd rather turn into ashes and flesh into mud. In this life, I've tasted all the bitterness, just to meet you in the next life, cuddling with you, depending on you. Never leave in life, never abandon in death. This song was composed by Wu Qianshan when she was alone in Butian Pavilion, wearing a black robe and a golden mask after the war in the lower three heavens had ended. He had nothing to do. Thus he secretly played a song. The more she played, the more heartbroken she felt. He still remembered that time when Tai Budian had unintentionally heard him playing the zither. Such a strong and independent emperor of a generation had actually burst into tears. A mournful melody sounded in his heart over and over again. Wu Qianshan stood in a daze. The night was cold. Her black robe was wet, but she didn't feel it. In her eyes there was only one person. She had already given her heart and her feelings to him. However, that person was just there, deep in thought. He was only a few feet away from her. That person. But he didn't know that she was here. Lower Three Heavens, Iron Cloud Imperial Palace. Tai Budian was dressed in a yellow robe. He was majestic and tall. He walked slowly into the bedroom and waved his hand. All of you are dismissed. I want to rest. Yes. The palace maids bowed and left in a single file. Everyone knew that His Majesty doted on His Majesty. He never used a wet nurse and never let His Majesty sleep alone. Every night he would hug His Majesty. When they thought of the day of the Empress's funeral, His Majesty was heartbroken and swore that he would never marry again in this lifetime. The palace maids felt admiration and bitterness in their hearts. Such a young and promising emperor of a generation, the only overlord in the entire lower three heavens, was actually such a sentimental person. This was really admirable, but at the same time, it made them sigh. There were 3,000 palace maids in the palace. All of them were as beautiful as flowers and jade. His Majesty actually didn't like any of them? The little thing on the dragon bed seemed to have heard the commotion. It opened its eyes and looked toward Tai Budian with its black pupils. Then it rolled over and sat up like a meatball. A cute smile appeared on its chubby little face. She scrambled to her feet and stretched out her two chubby little hands. Her short and chubby little legs actually took 2 steps forward, as if she wanted to pounce into Tai Budian's arms. However, after taking 2 steps, she lost her balance and her chubby left leg slanted in front of her right leg. With a thud, she fell onto the bed and lay flat on her stomach, revealing her 2 chubby little buttocks. It raised its head aggressively and snorted twice. Tai Budian couldn't help but laugh out loud. Her eyes were full of affection. Yeah. You will. The little thing turned over again and grabbed its left leg with familiarity. It lowered its head and actually wanted to bite its own leg. It seemed to blame this leg for being too insensible. It actually tripped itself. However, his body was round and chubby. How could he bend down? It couldn't reach it no matter how hard it tried. It was actually snorting and throwing a tantrum. You little fat pig. Tai Budian finally couldn't help but giggle. Her body and mind that had been busy for the whole day disappeared the moment she saw her son. She pulled out the unfathomable illusory jade from her chest and placed it on the table. At once, a peerless beauty appeared in the bedroom. Tai Budian heaved a sigh of relief. She took off the crown and let her hair down. Then she took off the emperor's robe. An exquisite and alluring figure appeared in the mirror. The little one on the dragon bed widened his eyes as he watched Tai Budian's transformation. His eyes were filled with bewilderment and astonishment. He had already seen this phenomenon many times, but the little fellow still couldn't understand why father had become mother in a flash. Tai Budian washed her face and wiped it. Then she sat on the bed. She faced her son and stared at him. After a long time she smiled and said, "You really look alike." Then she picked up the little fellow and placed him on her lap. Little Tai Yang looked at Tai Budian with his bright eyes and said somewhat uncertainly, "Mother monkey? Fu Huang?" Tai Yang had just celebrated his first birthday a few days ago and could already walk around unsteadily. As he walked he would fall and fall. But after all he could walk now and then. But he still couldn't speak properly. He could pronounce. But it was definitely not standard. "It's mother!" exclamation point. "Father." Tai Budian taught. "Mother monkey. Fu Huang." The little fellow blinked. Tai Budian sighed, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. She taught him a few more times but the little fellow was very persistent. Tai Budian finally gave up. She knew that it was still a little too early to teach such a young child. She poked the little fellow's forehead and said, "That father of yours is so eloquent that he can turn the dead into alive and talk the living into dead. Tell me, why are you so stupid?" The little fellow looked at her innocently. He babbled. Her chubby little hand, with adorable fleshy nests on each of her knuckles, reached over and accurately grabbed her chest. She cried out excitedly, "Grandma!" Tai Budian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She lay down on her side and unbuttoned her clothes. Then she pulled her son into her arms and stuffed her nipple into his mouth. The little fellow couldn't wait to swallow it in big mouthfuls. Tai Budian lay down, feeling the warmth and intimacy of being connected to her son by blood. Her heart, however, had floated somewhere else. The world was at peace now. The entire lower three heavens was peaceful and without war. There were also very few official matters that needed to be dealt with in a day. Every time she had free time she would instead think of those days of chaos and turmoil. How long had it been? It actually felt as if a lifetime had passed. "Jiang? Are you okay now? Our son is 1 year old. Do you know? His face, his eyes, his eyebrows, his nose and his mouth. It's as if they've been carved out from your face. They're exactly the same. Every time I look at him, I think of you. You muddle-headed, heartless enemy. You'll probably never know that I'm a girl, right? You think that after you've achieved success, you'll float away and live a carefree life. But you'll probably never know that not only do you have concerns, they're the biggest concerns in the world. Not only do you have your woman, but you also have your son. If you knew, what would you do? As Tai Budian thought about it, the corners of her mouth revealed a sad smile. It was bitter, perplexed, and with a hint of sweetness. She didn't even know the meaning behind it. She sighed. She placed her palm on her son's back and patted him gently. Her thoughts flew back to the mountain path outside beyond the heavens sect. In that carriage, Chu Yang's beast-like charge, she gritted her teeth and endured it. One didn't know anything, the other was anxious and only wanted to save her life. In her life, she had experienced many wedding nights. It happened in such a rushed situation. The virginity that she had cherished for 10 years was taken away in such a violent manner. Even now, when she recalled it, she still had lingering fears. That tearing pain. If Chu Yang didn't come back, then that pain would be wedged into her heart and become the pain of her life, wouldn't it? As Tai Budian thought about it, she felt a tearing pain in her heart. She couldn't help but burst into tears. Chu Yang, you're scheming and scheming. The whole world is in your hands. With a flip of your hand, you can summon clouds and rain. You're unrestrained with thousands of horses and thousands of soldiers. You're carefree with thousands of mountains and rivers. You laugh proudly in the face of life and death. You defeated an empire with one blow and established a clear sky with one hand. You're a man. You're a hero. But you are also really stupid. You've always thought that the relationship between us was one of mutual benefit. You've always thought that my trust in you was mutual benefit. You've always thought that my kindness to you was all due to the schemes of an emperor. But when have you ever seen an emperor risk his life for his subject? When have you ever seen an emperor and his subject have such unreserved tacit understanding and trust as we do? I'm here to nurse your child for you. I'm yearning for you day and night. I'm longing for you. I'm giving up my youth for you. But when you're carefree in the martial world, have you ever thought of me? Even when you think of me by chance, you can only think of a cold-faced, majestic, and unscrupulous emperor. Tai Budian smiled bitterly. Tears slid down her cheeks. They dripped onto her child's sleeping face. The night was quiet. The child was already fast asleep in his mother's arms. The faint moonlight shone in through the window. Tai Budian looked at the hazy moonlight in a daze. She thought to herself, even if it's by chance, have you thought of me? As long as you think of me, even if it's by chance, even if you think that I'm just a cold-faced emperor, you'll still think of me eventually. Tears flowed down her cheeks. At this moment there was no longer an emperor or monarch. There was only a broken but strong and regretless heart of a daughter. She sighed softly at how heroes often fail to live up to their expectations. Chu Yang, did you miss me? Chapter 978. It was late at night. Chu Yang was still sitting quietly by the lake, deep in thought. His posture didn't seem to have changed, but there was a sword in the water in front of him. It was stuck in the water and even the hilt was not in it. Chu Yang sat quietly and looked at the sword in the water. Since the sword was submerged in water, it looked like the sword was slightly bent. The lights in the Shuiyu Tower were dim and there were lights all around. Every time they flickered, the sword in the water seemed to change its shape. Chu Yang pondered quietly like this. The sword looked smooth, but it was made up of many sides. Each side could reflect different light. When the same light shone on this side, it would be like this. One color, but when it shone on that side, it would be another color. When it shone on several sides at the same time, a white light could become a rainbow. So this kind of thing existed. As the light changed, the sword's reflection would be different. But if the light didn't change and only moved the sword to match the light refraction, what would happen? How could he make the sword energy produce such a hazy rainbow? Chu Yang was deep in thought. He used his hand to stroke the water surface, making the sword's reflection more illusory and more confusing. Wu Qianshan stood behind the tree and looked at Chu Yang. She didn't know what Chu Yang was doing, but she knew that Chu Yang seemed to have entered a strange state. Now, only she was silently guarding him. In the distance, two black shadows flashed across the sky like lightning rushing towards them. They flew so fast that they left behind a series of afterimages. Chu Yang suddenly thought of something. He slapped his thigh and muttered, "The sword itself can't be moved. I only see the surface. I can't see the root. And where is the root? It's on my wrist. Only with a flexible wrist can I achieve it slowly, step, by following the refraction of light." Just as he slapped his thigh, outside the city in a distant place, there was suddenly an earth-shattering sound. Boom. Boom. The entire Qinji city shook violently at this moment. In the Shuiyu Tower in the water room. At this moment it actually shook a few times like a roly-poly toy. Panicked exclamations could be heard. On the calm surface of the water moon lake, a monstrous wave suddenly shot out, fiercely rolling towards the clear sky. Chuyang was caught off guard. He was so shaken that he sat down on the ground. He muttered, "Don't tell me that I slapped my thigh. To have such power." Wu Qianqian, who was hiding behind the tree, felt dizzy. She almost cried out in alarm. Even though her mood was originally very complicated, she could not help but almost burst out laughing when she heard Chu Yang's words at this moment. After a long time the water surface gradually calmed down. Chu Yang stood up and stretched his body. He only felt a creaking sound coming from his waist. It turned out that unknowingly, he had been sitting there for most of the night. Time really flies. Chu Yang smiled wryly. He was about to bend down and take out the water sword when his heart suddenly skipped a beat. A feeling of extreme danger arose in his heart. His body flashed and he was already on the surface of the water. High up in the sky, two black-robed men rushed over like lightning. Their swords were like rainbows that shocked the heavens. They rushed towards Chu Yang. Chu Yang let out a long roar. As his black clothes fluttered, he flew up. His body flashed continuously like a dream. He shouted, "Who are you?" Another slender black figure flew up on her sword. Her sword light was like thunder, and it went straight for the two black-robed men. At the same time he shouted in a low voice, "Who are you?" The two black-robed men laughed. "You don't deserve to know who we are. Today I'll let you two adulterers die here. Be a pair of mandarin ducks that share the same fate." Chu Yang frowned. He looked suspiciously at the black-robed woman who suddenly appeared to support him. His heart was filled with doubts. Why does this figure look so familiar? Wu Qianqian had already changed her voice. Chu Yang naturally could not recognize her. Just as he was about to think carefully, the two black-robed men had already attacked. Their swords were like thunder and lightning. They actually lit up the sky. Chu Yang smiled lightly. As his body moved he shouted lightly, "Slash." Suddenly the sword aura on his body soared into the sky. Sword Sovereign 7th grade full attack. Outside the city on a mountaintop. Three white figures separated like shooting stars. They each occupied a mountaintop, forming a triangle. Everyone's white clothes fluttered like immortals. Zi Xieching, Feng Yuro, Yulingxue. However, at this moment, Zi Xieching's white clothes fluttered. With a smile on her face, she looked serene and peaceful. She did not look like she had just finished a great battle. Yulingxue and Feng Yuro looked solemn. They looked at Zi Xieching with a complicated gaze. Between the three of them there was a huge open space. A mess of rocks. A moment ago this open space was a whole mountain peak that pierced the sky. Since the three of them came here they immediately started fighting. They were evenly matched. Under such an intense battle, Yulingxue and Feng Yuro both entered the Tao state under Zi Xieching's urging. Not only the two of them, even Zi Xieching herself also entered the Tao state at the same time. This battle, to Zi Xieching, was simply a huge gain. Her cultivation had already exceeded this space. Yulingxue and Feng Yuro were naturally not her match. Although she suppressed her cultivation this time, it was still quite enjoyable. Moreover, although Yulingxue and Feng Yuro's cultivation was not as good as hers, the moon breeze as one divine technique was very powerful. The most unique part of this technique was that the two hearts were united. The moon breeze as one divine technique belonged to the great Tao. After the two hearts were united, and after encountering such a strong opponent, the couple both entered the Tao state. However, this state also brought Zi Xieching, who was an outsider, into it. Zi Xieching had been in the heaven continent for tens of thousands of years, and she had only fought 2 battles to her heart's content. The first time was when she fought with the 2 supreme martial artists, Qin Feng and Lu Yun. However, there was no Tao state energy to absorb at that time. The second time was this time. This time the Tao state energy came endlessly. Zi Xieching was extremely surprised. She did not expect to have such a huge gain this time. Under the pincer attack of Yulingxue and Feng Yuro, the Tao state energy fell as if the sky had collapsed. Zi Xieching hurriedly collected it. She even faintly felt that the call from above the heaven, the barrier of the heaven, was rapidly thinning for her. The three of them benefited immensely. Zi Xieching was in the game. She could only collect the scattered Tao state energy in her own portion. However, she could not collect the Tao state energy of the moon breeze as one heart. Therefore, putting aside the Tao state energy, the moon breeze couple had gained more than Zi Xieching in terms of cultivation comprehension. Even the last time when the two of them fought Ning Tianya was definitely not as good as this time. Moreover, both of them could faintly feel that Ning Tianya's cultivation, compared to this fairy-like lady in white, was much inferior. At least this kind of terrifying pressure. They did not feel it from Ning Tianya. In the midst of the fierce battle, the Moon Breeze couple fought to their heart's content. They attacked together at the same time and launched the couple's most powerful move, Moon Breeze Palm Sky. Zi Sheqing instinctively blocked it. However, when the three of them exchanged blows here, the whole mountain suddenly collapsed in an instant. The three of them also broke free from the Tao state at the same time. Zi Sheqing's sleeves fluttered continuously, and the collapsed mountain was forcefully pulled back. It was pressed down into the ground. It turned this place into a piece of flat land. This kind of cultivation made Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro feel bitter instantly. They originally thought that the couple could be evenly matched with the other party if they joined forces. They did not expect the other party to be so powerful. Although the two of them could also collapse a mountain and even flatten it. However, if they were to be like the other party, kneading the collapsing mountain together again like kneading dough and pushing it into the ground, they would not be able to do it no matter what they said. Lady, you have great skills. In this battle we have lost, Yu Lingxue said proudly. A win was a win, a loss was a loss. Yu Lingxue's current status could be said to have reached the point where he could not afford to lose. However, he admitted it calmly. Feng Yuro nodded. She agreed with her husband's words. I'm not from the Qin clan, Zi Sheqing said with a faint smile. If you didn't attack just now, I would have. Her first sentence made her stand clear, indicating that she had nothing to do with the Qin clan. However, she sighed secretly. She did not expect the Moon Breeze as one heart to absorb Tao state energy to be so powerful. If they continued fighting, she might be able to replenish the Tao state energy she needed. Was a pity? Giving up halfway. If they continued fighting, the two of them would probably be very agitated now. In addition, the benefits were great. Before they stabilized their cultivation, they would not be able to enter that kind of Tao state. The cultivation of the two of you is already very powerful. Zi Sheqing smiled. Among the heaven-level experts I've fought in my life, the two of you can already be ranked in the top 10. After this battle, you should be able to enter the top 8. Top 10? Feng Yuro could not help but ask curiously. Among all the legendary experts, the husband and wife believed that they were ranked in the top 5. However, for Zi Sheqing they were actually in the top 10. Who were those 5 people? One must know that the Dharma Supreme was unfathomable, followed by Bu Luqing and Ning Tianya, and then the husband and wife. Although Yi Di and Xiao Sei were about to enter or had already entered the supreme level, they should not be a match for the husband and wife. Could it be the two supreme martial artists Qin Feng and Lu Yun? That's right, top 10, Zi Sheqing said. The two of you are already infinitely close to the end of the heaven level. When you break through the end, you should understand what I mean. Zi Sheqing smiled and said, perhaps one day we will meet in other places. I'll take my leave now. Heaven is high, we'll meet again. There were still a few things to say. It was very speechless. The first thing was that he saw a sister with no fan points leave a comment in the book review section, saying that the book must be the female lead, or else it would be taken down. Following the footsteps, he saw that this sister had fan points in the female channel and was crazily clamoring. More handsome men. Speaking of which, although men and women are now equal and the status of women has improved, but I won't talk about it. The second thing was that this was a fantasy, and the setting was similar to the ancient feudal society where men were superior to women, the era of cold weapons. Please do not judge the novel by the modern monogamy system. No matter how powerful feminism was, it did not seem to be able to control the other world in the ancient times. A few examples. Tang Taizong Li Shimin and Empress Zhang Sun, did they really love each other? Ming Dynasty's Emperor Zhu Yuanzhang and Empress Ma, so what? Xuanji Emperor and concubine Dongyi, what about them? However, Emperor Kangxi was not concubine Dongyi's child after all. Using the modern view of love, and modern women. Using the modern view of love to judge a novel with a feudal setting in a different world. Don't you think it's too ridiculous? If I were to write a modern city with a few more female leads, it would be fine if you all scolded me. But in the feudal society of the other world, where did the mistress come from? Mistress? Wu Qianxian actually became a secretary. I was even more puzzled. Where did this come from? Besides, even if it was the modern era, so what? In the vast world, how many times have you seen fairness? If there was harmony in the world, why did you have to pursue your ideals online? The third thing was that someone suggested to me, I request for Wu Qianxian to die, I request for Tai Budian to die, and the child to drown in an accident. What do you think? There were also people who requested. Mo Qingwu died in the previous life, so she might as well die in this life. It's easy to create a classic by writing a sad story. Do I have nothing better to do? Why would I create a damn classic? If I were to play with my pen and write about current affairs, I could write about it in the People's Daily. Instead of being here, what made me speechless was that these people did not have any fan points. They did not have any fan points and read pirated versions. Yet they came to the original book review section to make such a request? I said earlier that I abhor pirated websites. But to the readers I can give them understanding. My friends who have been with me for 3 years should understand that I, Feng Ling, am not lying when I say this. Chapter 979. Zi Shiqing smiled slightly. With a flick of her sleeves, her slim figure retreated in the air and floated to the side of a tree. With a roll of her sleeves, Chu Lir, who was on the tree, fell into her arms. Then, without stopping, she turned in mid-air and disappeared without a trace with a flash of white. Tearing space. Yu Lingshua's pupils shrank. The last move of the woman in white made his heart skip a beat. There's actually such a powerful person in this world. And a woman at that. Feng Yuro was stunned for a moment before she sighed. The couple looked at each other, both speechless. After a long while, they remembered to check their own cultivation and comprehension. With this check, both of them were pleasantly surprised. Just now both of us entered the Tao state. Yu Lingshua's handsome face revealed a trace of surprise. He said, "Now, I'm already at the peak of supreme martial artist level." "Me too." Feng Yuro said, "I didn't expect to gain so much from this battle. If we take another step forward, we'll reach the end of the heavens that this mysterious woman in white mentioned." Yu Lingshua's eyes were shining. He said, "I seem to feel that there's already such a flexible space barrier in front of us. Once we break it, it'll be another world." Feng Yuro nodded and sighed again. She said, "Even if we really break the end, what can we do?" She turned her head guiltily and looked at Yu Lingxua. "You and I have been husband and wife for such a long time." Yu Lingxua pulled his wife into his arms and said gently, "This is the limitation of the Moon Breeze couple. It's not your fault alone. Besides, as long as you're by my side, even if we don't have children, so what? I'm also satisfied." Feng Yuro nodded silently and curled up in her husband's arms. At this moment, this powerful supreme martial artist was just like a weak little girl. "Let's enter the city," Yu Lingxua said, and Feng Yuro nodded silently. At this moment, a sentence floated from afar. "The Moon Breeze couple is not without children. It's just that your cultivation is not up to par." It was Zi Shiqing's voice. The couple looked up in surprise. "Really?" But that voice didn't sound again. "Let's go." Yu Lingshua's eyes showed determination. "Let's enter Chenji City. She must be in the city." Chu Yang roared and his sword aura soared into the sky. Apart from him, the swords of the other 3 people all showed a slight delay. Even when facing a martial saint, the Sword Emperor's unyielding majesty was still dignified and proud. The 3 swords clanged at the same time. The sword hummed in submission. The 2 men in black snorted and were slightly surprised. "Sword Emperor?" Then he said coldly, "If you were a sword saint, you might be able to create some trouble. But you're just a sword emperor. You won't be able to cause any trouble for my brother." Chu Yang flicked his sword and stood up. He said indifferently, "Whether it's troublesome or not, you can't say it with your mouth." The 2 men in black contemptuously said, "Since words won't work, then we'll have to use our hands." They spread their bodies and charged from both sides. Chu Yang and Wu Qianqian immediately felt a mountain-like pressure. Chu Yang's eyes flashed and he shouted, "Top-notch martial saints?" Then he changed his mind and shouted, "Are you law enforcement officers?" The 2 men in black laughed weirdly in unison. Their bodies moved like the wind and pressed down crazily. Chu Yang fell from the sky like a meteor. He knew that he was no match for such experts. He could only avoid them. However, the woman in black beside him was also a martial saint expert. But she had just entered the martial saint level and was far from being a match for these 2. Therefore, as Chu Yang was falling, he shouted hurriedly, "Tight wind! Let's fight side by side." His tone was like that of a bandit who was attacked after failing to rob. The 2 men chased after him closely. Wu Qianqian held her sword horizontally and a ray of cold light shone. She actually blocked Chu Yang's back. She was facing 2 martial saints alone. She even swung her right hand backward and a gentle force caught up with Chu Yang's falling body. She actually gave him a push. Chu Yang's falling body was even more hurried. However, his heart was heavily shaken. This woman in black's cultivation was far inferior to the other party. She was distracted to send him far away and was in even more danger. This was purely using her own life in exchange for his escape. Who was she? What? The two men's eyes revealed a cruel look. Their swords turned into a curtain of light and pressed down like a sword mountain. Wu Qianqian snorted and shouted, "Ice seal 3,000 miles?" She pointed her sword and the white and tender palm of her right hand shone. Suddenly a surge of cold air surged out. In an instant the sky turned cold and the ground froze. The next moment Chu Yang fell into the water and sank. The next moment the water's surface was already covered with ice. Wu Qianqian's mouth revealed a smile behind her mask. "I will give you a hand and let you escape. But the other party is too strong. You can't escape. And I am also not their match. I can't stop them for long. So, I will throw out 3,000 miles of ice to show my identity. If they are afraid of my master, you and I will be safe. Even if they are not afraid, they will be startled when they hear this name. Even if it is just a blink of an eye, it will be enough for you to pull away again. Then I will freeze the water. Even if they are not afraid of my master, they will still kill me. If they chase after you in the water, the ice surface and I will be able to stop them again. With these three powers, with your intelligence, you can definitely escape with your life. I'm 100% sure of what you're capable of. Then I can be at ease. I can also be free, but don't be stupid. Don't come back to save me out of loyalty. That will make my death meaningless, indeed." Once 3,000 miles of ice was used, the two high-level martial saints were stunned. They hurriedly retracted their swords and shouted, "Little girl, you are the successor of Martial Saints Feng and you?" Wu Qianqian said coldly, "So what if I am? So what if I am not?" The two of them were in a dilemma. It turned out that this girl was the main culprit that caused the Chen clan to be annihilated outside the city. She was the brother of Feng Yuro and Yu Lingxue. Chu Yang had to be killed. This was the mission of the two dukes. It had to be completed. But the brother of Martial Saints Feng and Yu was in front of them. What should they do? The two of them looked at each other, their eyes flickering. It was late at night and there was no one around. Even if it was, so what? Besides, their faces were covered. Who would know who did it? But they were afraid that Martial Saints Feng and Yu had placed a restriction on her body. If there was a restriction, it would be troublesome. Not only would the two of them be in trouble, the Yi clan would also be in trouble. "Little girl, even if you are Martial Saint Yu's brother, it's a pity that he is not here. I advise you to leave obediently." "I will not pursue today's matter," one of them said in a low voice. The other person channeled all his power and focused on Wu Qianqian's mask. His martial saint cultivation was fully activated and his divine senses surrounded her. He checked Wu Qianqian's divine senses. After a long time, he finally confirmed that this little girl's power had been cultivated quickly and had not stabilized. And at this stage there would not be any soul entrapment restriction. The two of them looked at each other and nodded. They made up their minds at the same time. They would not kill Martial Saint Yu's brother if they could. If they really had to kill him, they would do it cleanly. "If you retreat, I will naturally retreat." Wu Qianqian said in a hoarse voice, "I don't want to interfere in your matters. But I don't like the idea of bullying the weak and winning with numbers." The two of them said coldly, "Little girl, have you made up your mind?" Wu Qianqian did not hear any movement under the water for a long time. She knew that Chu Yang had escaped danger and felt comforted. She said lightly, "Hiding the head but showing the tail is nothing more than this." The two of them were furious. "Little girl, you are courting death." Their long swords flashed and they attacked again. The attack this time was much sharper than the previous one. A long night was fraught with problems. Especially killing Martial Saint Yu's disciple. The faster the better. Wu Qianqian snorted. Her long sword flashed with coldness and she faced them head-on. Smack. Wu Qianqian was only a 3rd-grade martial saint while her opponents were 8th grade. This was undoubtedly the difference between heaven and earth. In just one exchange, Wu Qianqian's long sword broke and she flew out like a kite with a broken string. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. She had tried her best to avoid a head-on confrontation with her opponents. But the huge gap in their cultivation made her unable to withstand even a little bit of the residual power. The two of them sneered and shouted, "Want to leave? Can't we kill Martial Saint Yu's brother?" The two of them were surprised that Wu Qianqian survived their attack. However, even though he was surprised, he still didn't hesitate to attack again. Wu Qianqian felt that her body was about to be completely crushed by such a huge force. But there was a smile in her eyes. She was free. She was satisfied. To be able to see you before I die, to be able to die for you, To be able to exchange my death for your life, that is enough. What makes me the most satisfied is that, you don't know who I am. So you may sigh in your heart, but you won't feel guilty or sad. Wu Qianshan smiled bitterly. Then she brandished her broken sword and abruptly stopped her retreat. Then she charged forward. Her head of fine black hair fluttered in the wind, like a moth flying into a flame. She was about to throw her delicate body into the murderous sword light. But I want to die without a complete corpse. Chuyang, if I am alive, I may appear in front of you with my real face one day. But now that I am dead, I don't want you to recognize me. The two of them attacked with all their might. Wu Qianshan rushed forward to meet them. The three of them were determined to fight head-on. But on one hand they were confident that they would win. On the other hand they knew that they would lose, but they still wanted to fight. Because Wu Qianshan knew that since the two of them had decided to attack her, they would not allow her to escape. If she escaped now, only one of them would be able to catch up with her while the other could search for Chu Yang. She might as well fight it out here. Death was not to be regretted. But how to make the most out of it was a problem. A man's violent death could be for his ideals, career, hegemony, some noble goals, or for a woman. In short, there were too many reasons for a man to die. But, when a woman was willing to die, it was mostly for the man she loved. Wu Qianshan bit her red lips and flew up resolutely. Chapter 980. The two Yi clan experts sneered as they watched Wu Qianshan charge into their sword light. Their eyes were filled with delight and a tinge of anxiety. This woman who was about to die under their swords was the disciple of Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro. They were filled with delight at the thought of this. Who would dare to kill the disciple of the Moon Breeze couple? Only us. Kill her, kill Chu Yang and leave immediately. Dead men tell no tales. Both parties were about to come into contact. Right at this moment, a sword chime that sounded like a dragon's roar suddenly appeared in the air. Following the chime, the ice on the lake suddenly melted. A sword light, like the rising sun, jumped out from the water under their feet. The next moment, it had turned into a rainbow. Yes, a rainbow. Because this sword was actually filled with the 7 colors of red, orange, yellow, green, blue and purple. This rainbow was like a bolt of lightning. Although it was launched later, it arrived first. It actually surpassed Wu Qianshan's body in an instant and came into contact with the sword light of the two 8th-grade martial saints before they came into contact with each other. With a pull of his left hand, Wu Qianshan's body involuntarily flew backward. A desolate and lonely sword intent appeared in the air. With a loud clang, the three of them flew backward in the air. The clothes of the two martial saints fluttered in the air and they staggered back a few hundred feet in the air. They looked at Chu Yang, who had charged out of the water again, in horror. Never in their wildest dreams would they have thought that this little guy was a 7th-grade sword sovereign before entering the water. But when he leaped out of the water again, he actually became an 8th-grade sword saint. This was really unbelievable. The two of them looked at each other and felt that their intelligence was completely wrong. They couldn't help but want to retreat immediately. To be able to reach this step, the two of them were naturally decisive people. They signaled each other and without saying a word, they flew up together with the sword light and were about to fly away. Chu Yang laughed. "Want to leave? Can't I kill an 8th-grade martial saint?" The tone of this sentence was exactly the same as what the two of them said just now. "Can't I kill Master Yu's brother?" The black figure swept past and the sword light flashed twice. At this moment, Wu Qianshan below felt that 2 rainbows were shot out from the sword, but there was no force behind them. She couldn't help but feel strange. However, the 2 saint-level saints had a very different feeling. Because these 2 rainbow rays were like 2 sharp swords, piercing straight into their eyes. In an instant, his eyes were filled with 5 different colors. For a moment, it was impossible to tell the direction. He couldn't help but be shocked. What kind of kung fu was this? Chu Yang, who had been possessed by the sword spirit, quickly shook his wrist and caused the side of the sword to instantly converge together with the neon lights from all directions to refract the sword. Wherever he went, he would first bewitch the eyes. Their bodies were in midair, but they had lost their vision and sense of direction. They were scared out of their wits. Their internal energy sank and they quickly fell down. But Chu Yang had already caught up with them. A fierce pressure suddenly enveloped them. His 2 legs flew out like lightning. His left leg stepped on the person on the right, and his right leg stepped on the person on the left. His 2 legs crossed and he fiercely exerted his strength. The 2 of them sank down with all their might, and then they were kicked by the opponent. With a loud crash, they landed on the shore with their buttocks facing the sky, flattening sand descending wild goose style. Their bodies were tough. They didn't care about their sorry state and jumped up, leaving 2 human-shaped dents on the ground. They were about to fly up. A cold voice said, "Why are you running? Haven't you heard of the saying, lie down where you fall?" Wu Qianshan was holding her chest and regulating her breathing. When she heard this, she almost stopped breathing. "I've only heard of stand up from where you fall, but I've never heard of lie down from where you fall." Chu Yang, who was possessed by the sword spirit, spun around like lightning. His long sword shot out thousands of rainbows again. Instantly, the entire space was filled with magnificence. However, in this magnificence, there was a boundless murderous intent. With two slaps, the two 8th-grade martial saints rolled back like dead dogs. Their backs were hit by the sword's spine. For a moment, it was as if they were paralyzed. They couldn't use any strength in their bodies and were slapped back. Until their chests were stepped on by a foot, there was still only a rainbow in front of them. They couldn't see anything clearly. Then they were kicked twice. One foot hit their chins and broke it. The other foot stepped on their dantian. With a bang, their dantian was broken. They didn't even have the strength to commit suicide, let alone fight for their lives. Then the two of them were thrown together. They were dizzy and the sky was full of stars. The sword spirit removed the possession at lightning speed and returned to the space of consciousness. He continued to study the rainbow sword technique that Chu Yang had just comprehended. This kind of use of light was a completely new domain for the sword spirit. Previously, when Chu Yang was comprehending, the sword spirit was also comprehending. The battle this time was indeed very effective. However, the sword spirit felt that he hadn't fully unleashed and truly understood the subtleties of this sword technique. So, once the matter was over, he went back immediately. Besides, that woman in black also needed Chu Yang to take care of her. Or rather, to understand her. So, the sword spirit disappeared quickly and suddenly. Chu Yang didn't even have time to prepare before he sat down on the ground. Then he came back to his senses. Wu Qianshan saw Chu Yang suddenly stumble and fall on the ground. She couldn't help but feel anxious. Ignoring the unbearable pain in her chest, she strode over and asked, Are you okay?" Chu Yang grinned, "I'm fine. Thank you, miss. May I know who you are?" He looked up and felt that although the other party was masked, she looked more and more familiar. He couldn't help but feel suspicious. Why does this woman in black look so much like senior sister Wu Qianshan? But it's impossible. Wu Qianshan married the Iron Cloud Emperor Tai Butian. She's now the Empress of Iron Cloud Palace. How can she be here? Besides, when I left the lower three heavens, Wu Qianshan was only a martial great master. Even if she came to the upper three heavens, it's impossible for her to suddenly become a martial saint. Even from martial great master to 3rd grade martial saint, there are a total of 40 levels. It's only been a year and a half, not even 2 years. How can it be? As the Tribulation Sword Master, it can't be so fast. Isn't it even more impossible for Wu Qianshan? So this woman in black definitely can't be Wu Qianshan. Wu Qianshan met Chu Yang's gaze and immediately turned her head to look elsewhere. Her voice was a little hoarse as she said lightly, "Nothing. It's just that these two people are bullying me because they outnumber me. I can't stand it." Chu Yang laughed, "Miss, you're the younger brother of elders Feng and you. You're indeed chivalrous." Wu Qianshan said, "There's no need for pleasantries. I believe you're also very anxious now. It's better to interrogate these two people as soon as possible. I heard you say that you suspect that they're law enforcement officers. Could it be that you've actually had a conflict with law enforcement officers at such a young age?" Chu Yang smiled slightly. "I said that they're law enforcement officers, but they're definitely not law enforcement officers. Law enforcement officers have an inexplicable aura. It's like the ruthless aura of those from the torture hall. Everyone looks like a criminal, but these two don't have such an aura. And there's no enmity or hatred between them. So they must have been instructed by someone." He smiled faintly. His eyes shone with a sharp light. He smiled cruelly, "However, the truth will come out soon. Everyone is waiting anxiously. I'll continue to work overtime. I'm afraid it'll be very late tonight. Speaking of which, I haven't been able to write a single word today. I'll only say one thing. Ladies, if you've subscribed, please enter the group. I'll keep your secret and won't reveal anything about you. How much did you spend to subscribe? Give me your account number and I'll look it up. According to your fan value, I'll return it to you. Then please take it down. It's much better. Please find something that suits your taste. I really can't afford to offend you. I'm very sorry that I can't give you all the money you spent. I can only give you the portion that I earned. Thank you. Thank you for your love for my novel. Goodbye. Don't worry, I won't cause any trouble for you. Feng Ling should still be able to gain your trust in this circle. The phone number 7898. I'm not going to use it anymore from today onwards. You can call me or not in the future. Although I'll have to change the number for wireless, simplified and traditional. I'm not afraid of trouble. I've just settled this matter with my chief editor tonight. My phone number will be kept a secret in the future. Chapter 981. Wu Qianshan nodded and said tiredly, then you deal with it. I have to leave. Chu Yang frowned and said, Miss is still injured, it's better for you to rest. Wu Qianshan endured the pain and said lightly, I have my ways. She was about to leave. At such a close distance, Chu Yang could confirm her identity at any time. Wu Qianshan dared to bet that Chu Yang was already doubting whether she was Wu Qianshan. But whether it was time, space, cultivation or identity, the gap was too big for Chu Yang to be sure. If she was not a martial saint and not the brother of Moon Breeze, then Chu Yang would definitely have called out her name by now. Chu Yang thought for a while and took out a pill from his pocket. He said, this is a medicine for injuries, you can try it. Thank you. Wu Qianshan was not pretentious. She took it and put it in her mouth without even looking at it. Chu Yang looked at her with shining eyes and smiled slightly. Miss, have we met before? Wu Qianshan's heart skipped a beat. She said, I don't think so, I don't have any impression of you. But I think you look familiar. Chu Yang grinned. I think you look like an old friend of mine. Wu Qianshan said lightly, is she your confidant? Chu Yang sighed and chuckled. He did not say anything. Wu Qianshan smiled lightly. Take care, goodbye. Her slender figure suddenly rose and turned in the air. She disappeared without a trace like a shooting star. Chu Yang asked from behind, Miss, don't you want to know who Li Daoping's two suppliers are? Wu Qianshan did not reply. She seemed to have walked far away. Chu Yang, you still avoided my question. Wu Qianshan smiled bitterly as she walked away. Wu Qianshan had mustered up her courage to ask the question, is she your soulmate? She had tried her best to control herself, but she couldn't help but want to confirm her position in Chu Yang's heart. However, Chu Yang avoided this question again. At this moment, Wu Qianshan did not know what to feel. Besides, Chu Yang was going to extort a confession in the next moment. She knew Chu Yang's methods, what he wanted. She could definitely get it out. And the scene would be very bloody. It was inappropriate for him to be here. Chu Yang looked in the direction where Wu Qianshan had left. He was in a daze for a while. Then he silently said in his heart, Sword Spirit, tell me, did I do the right thing? The Sword Spirit said indifferently, what's right? Chu Yang smiled bitterly, you count? Am I right, to treat Senior Sister Wu this way? The Sword Spirit's eyes widened. Aren't you sure it's not her? Chu Yang heaved a sigh of relief and said, I don't know why she came to the upper three heavens, and why she became the younger brother of Elders Feng and you. I don't know how she reached the saint level, but I am certain that this is her. I can't be wrong. The Sword Spirit frowned. Reason? Chu Yang said softly, previously she tried her best to be indifferent because she was afraid that I would recognize her. But there was one sentence that made me suspicious. That sentence? Could it be that at such a young age, you already had a conflict with Li Fei-ping? There was bitterness in Chu Yang's eyes. Although I look young, I have the cultivation of a sword emperor. And this cultivation is already enough to retain my youth. If she didn't know me, how could she be so sure that I'm young? And, this sentence, she was obviously worried. It was just a chance acquaintance. Why was she so worried about me? The Sword Spirit said, it could also be that she felt indignant. It's hard to say for sure. It's very far-fetched to use this reason to confirm. All right. The second reason is that when I gave her the healing medicine, she didn't even look at it before she threw it into her mouth. Chu Yang smiled. She trusted me too much. You must know that she's a woman, a young woman. How could she trust a stranger for the first time? But Senior Sister Wu always trusted me unconditionally. The Sword Spirit nodded silently. Thirdly, I asked her if we had met before. Her heart beat violently at that moment. Chu Yang said, fourthly, she asked me if she was my close female friend. It's very presumptuous to use this sentence between a man and a woman who met for the first time. Even if it's not presumptuous, there's a strong desire in this sentence. Chu Yang heaved a long sigh. If she wasn't Senior Sister Wu, I would be blind. The Sword Spirit was silent for a moment. If you were sure of her identity. If that's the case, then, your avoidance of me again is too heartbreaking. Chu Yang was silent for a long time. Then he said softly, how could I not be touched? How could I not be moved? How could I be willing to break her heart? But I thought that after I left, her heart would fade. Besides, she had already decided to marry Tai Budian. Tai Budian is also a man. Even though he's an emperor, he's also my friend. If I said anything, wouldn't I be destroying her family? So I could only avoid it. That's right. Why did the Empress of Iron Cloud come to the upper three heavens? The sword spirit frowned. He couldn't help but agree with Chu Yang's words. It was as if he only saw that Wu Qianqian would be heartbroken but actually neglected the fact that she was already Tai Butian's wife. It was indeed inappropriate for Chu Yang to say anything now. If a man as extraordinary as Tai Butian were to be cuckolded, it would be too much to justify. Moreover, they were friends. But what the sword spirit didn't know was that if Tai Butian herself had heard Chu Yang saying Tai Butian is also a man, she would probably have the urge to strangle Chu Yang to death on the spot. I even gave birth to a son for you and you're actually still a man. Your whole family is men. Let's not talk about this. Chu Yang was a little upset. After confirming Wu Qianqian's identity, Chu Yang had some inexplicable complaints. He was touched but also a little angry. You've already become someone else's wife. Why don't you abide by the rules of a wife? Yes, you were so affectionate towards me previously. I let you down. I didn't respond to any of your efforts directly. I was a little heartless. But my heart only has Jianghu. Now you're already someone else's wife but you're following in my footsteps. Why is this? How am I supposed to deal with this? When I see Tai Butian in the future, even if I didn't do anything, how am I supposed to face my former comrade, my former brother and my former friend? Sigh. Chu Yang sighed. He still decided, if there's a chance, I have to persuade her. Senior Sister Wu, you already have a husband. Don't follow me? Go back to your husband's side. It's really not a good thing. If one day I can't control myself, then I really won't have the face to face the rest of the world. Chu Yang felt somewhat annoyed as he thought about this. So he took large strides towards the two unlucky captives. Then he tore off their masks and looked at their faces. Both of them opened their eyes wide and ferociously glared at him. They didn't show any signs of weakness. Chu Yang thought to himself, the one on the left, his face shape, eyes and temperament all have a hint of fearlessness. Although the other one is also unafraid of death, his eyes are a little evasive. When it comes to extorting confessions, if King of Hell Chu claimed to be second in the world, perhaps even the torture hall of the law enforcement officers wouldn't dare to claim to be first. With a thought, he made up his mind. He grabbed the one on the left. Without saying anything, he shook his hand and slapped him. With a loud smack, 8 or 9 teeth fell out. Don't even think about getting anything out of me, this person said fiercely and vaguely. I don't intend to ask. I just want to teach you a lesson so that even your juniors won't dare to be human. Chu Yang slapped him back. Did I ask you? With a loud smack, the right side of his face collapsed. 2 slaps. All of his teeth were slapped out. Chu Yang grabbed him and tore his clothes with a schwa sound. With a kick, he kicked his naked body to the side of a tree. Then he stomped on his crotch. With a loud smack, his crotch was badly mutilated. Chu Yang snorted. I'm not asking you. He stomped on him again. I'm asking you? I'm so bored that I'm asking you. Bang. This martial saint was in so much pain that he couldn't cry out. Now that he had just caught his breath, he was about to cry out miserably. Smack. A piece of mud and grass was stuffed into his crotch. It was stuffed with so much force that this person let out a cry and fainted. Chapter 982. Chu Yang smiled faintly and said, Really? A leg was placed on his crotch. It's true. It's true. The man trembled as he spoke. Seeing that the foot was about to land on him, he suddenly roared and desperately said, I'll tell you everything, I just want you to give me a quick death. If what I said isn't true, then let all 8 generations of my ancestors be bastards. Please, believe me, boo-hoo. He actually started to cry. His consciousness had been completely destroyed. In his eyes, the current Chu Yang was absolutely the incarnation of the devil. He was much more terrifying than the Grim Reaper. As a person who lived in the martial world, he had seen many torture interrogations. However, it was the first time he had seen such a clean and efficient interrogation. It was as if the interrogation was purely for the pleasure of torturing and not for the purpose of getting anything out of him. Especially the fact that this guy's soul had been scattered all over the place, yet there wasn't even a single drop of blood on his body. He looked at Chu Yang's black clothes in fear. His 2 hands subconsciously supported himself on the ground and his body kept sliding backwards. Chu Yang followed his gaze and looked at himself. He suddenly said, Oh, I forgot to mention I'm a clean freak. The person on the ground vomited with a sickening sound. He vomited until tears flowed out of his eyes. Clean freak? You have a freaking clean freak. Looking at the man's reaction, Chu Yang smiled faintly. Tell me who instructed you to come here. Chu Yang asked faintly. Second Duke Yi Shifeng instructed. Third Duke Yi Shiyu planned this. Yi Shifeng? Yi Shiyu? Why do you want to kill me? Because Second Duke dislikes you. You made a fool of Third Duke. Just for this? Chu Yang was slightly suspicious. It's absolutely true. Telling half a lie will make me the same as him. The man immediately started to swear. I'll believe you for now. Who came from the Yi clan this time? How many supreme martial artists? What's their level? 30 people came. One of them is a supreme martial artist, one is a 5th grade supreme martial artist, and 2 are 3rd grade supreme martial artists. There are also 5 2nd grade martial saints, 10 8th grade martial saints, 50 of them are 1st grade or 2nd grade martial saints. The rest are all peak martial monarchs. The man replied exceptionally quickly. So many people? Chu Yang frowned. According to common sense, a big clan should have suffered a serious injury by mobilizing these forces, right? Is the industry so powerful? This was also a question that Chu Yang had been considering for a long time. No, there are still many experts in the family. This person said in a panic. He was afraid that Chu Yang would think that he was lying. So he hurriedly said, moreover, the big clans nowadays are not the same as the big clans of the past, especially the men of the clans. They are even more different. Are they different from the men of the big clans in the past? Chu Yang raised his eyebrows. Don't tell me that the men of your big clans have 2 balls now? No, they don't have 2 balls. This person said tearfully, I don't know the exact reason either. I only know that a few thousand years ago, the Dharma Supreme gathered the leaders of the big clans for a meeting. Then, the experts of the big clans began to semi-retire and secret organizations were formed in each of the clans. And from then on, heavenly treasures and earthly treasures were really valued. Other than a few talented geniuses, those who were worth nurturing would be endlessly nurtured with elixirs. There are really many experts in the big clans now. Chu Yang frowned. How many experts does the Yi clan have? This time, only 2 secret branches have been mobilized. Each branch has mobilized 1/3 of its members, and there are 8 secret organizations like the Yi clan. This person said, I don't know how many people there are in total. Chu Yang fell into deep thought. There was something fishy about this matter. From the memory of the first Tribulation Sword Master, the Dharma Supreme of the law enforcement officers should be on the same side as the Tribulation Sword Master. Therefore, as long as the previous Tribulation Sword Masters killed their way up to the upper 3 heavens and obtained the Tribulation Sword Fragment, they would look for the Dharma Supreme to discuss important matters. But this time, the Dharma Supreme did this and instructed the big clans on how to increase their strength. Was he obviously making things difficult for the Tribulation Sword Master? What was the reason for this? After Chu Yang obtained this memory, he had thought of going to the headquarters of the law enforcement officers to look for the Dharma Supreme. He didn't ask for any help, just that the Dharma Supreme wouldn't help either side. This would be a great help to him. But now he actually found out about this matter. There was no doubt that there was something wrong with the Dharma Supreme. Chu Yang's back was covered in cold sweat. Luckily he didn't go. Otherwise he would really be killed by the memory of the first Tribulation Sword Master and wouldn't even know how he died. What medicine did the Yi clan bring this time? Chu Yang suppressed the question of the Dharma Supreme in his heart and asked. Our Yi clan has sent out the perverted lotus this time. Furthermore, we have already sent it to the medicine banquet in advance under the protection of the Supreme Martial Artist. Actually, our Yi clan has already gone through the selection of the medicine banquet this time. This person trembled. There's such a thing. Chu Yang was furious. Can this thing be manipulated behind the scenes? The king of Hell Chu wasn't angry because of the manipulation behind the scenes, but because the perverted lotus had already been handed over to the medicine banquet. With the Zhuge clan's concealment methods, the possibility of him obtaining the perverted lotus before the competition was close to 0. This was the real reason for his anger. The medicinal herbs for Chu Leur's treatment were about to be gathered, but such a thing happened? This martial saint lowered his head speechlessly. Too despicable. Chu Yang said angrily, you brought so many people this time, so many experts. It can't be that you're just escorting, right? Could it be that you have other motives? Chu Yang calmly raised a series of questions. I heard that, in the previous battle to encircle and annihilate the 3 Stars Divine Clan, the people from the Zhuge clan joined forces with the Lan clan and captured an elder of the 3 Stars Divine Clan. Moreover, during this period of time he has been imprisoned in the Zhuge clan. The Zhuge clan has received many benefits from this secret information. Therefore this time, we have to see if we can get this person out. Someone from the Divine Clan? In the Zhuge clan? When Chu Yang heard this, he was really shocked for a moment. Suddenly, the old hatred in his heart surged. He suddenly remembered that in the lower three heavens, Zhuge Changfeng had led people to besiege his brothers. It was also at that time that Tan Tan's identity was confirmed, so that was it. At that time, almost all of his brothers were killed or injured. The Zhuge clan had yet to pay back this debt. Chu Yang pondered and said, "When will your elder ancestor Yi Di arrive?" This time, this person's eyes suddenly showed signs of resistance. He actually stuttered and didn't speak. Chu Yang nodded and sneered. Actually, Yi Di isn't like what Yi Shifeng said. He won't be here for a period of time, right? Instead, he has been here for a long time, which means he has always been in the Yi clan's team. Is that right? This person lowered his head dejectedly. Chu Yang thought for a while and said, "Go on your way." That person suddenly raised his head. Chu Yang had already smashed the top of his head with his palm. The night was dark and the lakeside was dark. Steam rose and Chu Yang's muttering could be faintly heard. Yi Shifeng, Yi Xiu, Yi clan. Zhuge clan, he muttered again. It seems that the Lan clan should be more resentful towards the Zhuge clan. He recalled that when the sword spirit possessed Zhuge Changfeng and fought against him, Zhuge Changfeng had once said in shock, "You are from the Lan clan." If there is no animosity, why would Zhuge Changfeng only mention the Lan clan and not the other clans when he was at the critical moment of life and death? Chu Yang muttered softly. His voice was actually filled with a sinister and scheming tone. It's not good to be so complicated. It's better to make it simpler. I think Diwu Qingru is also looking forward to it? Chu Yang smiled lightly. His black figure floated up and instantly disappeared into the darkness. When he returned to the inn, he saw that Zi Sheqing and Chu Le had already returned. Chu Le was lying on the small bed. Her breathing was light and she had already fallen asleep. However, Zi Sheqing seemed to be waiting for him. Chu Yang calmed down and asked, "Where did you go?" Zi Sheqing smiled lightly. "I went out to play." Chu Yang suddenly felt that Zi Sheqing's temperament seemed to be different from before. It was as if she was more perfect and more powerful. He couldn't help but ask suspiciously, "What happened?" Zi Sheqing's eyes revealed a hint of excitement. "I think I can gather the Tao state energy that I need in a short period of time." Chu Yang was instantly overjoyed. "Congratulations, I'm finally going to be free." "Yes." Zi Sheqing rolled her eyes at him and said, "There's still a little gap now. This gap can only be filled up by you. So during this period of time, you don't need to rest. I'll help you improve your cultivation and comprehend the Tao state." Chu Yang was about to cry. "Big Sister Zi." Zi Sheqing smiled coldly. Chu Yang's eyes turned and he said, "I can agree to Big Sister Zi's request. I'm not an outsider to help Big Sister Zi. However, you have to do me a favor too." Zi Sheqing was so angry that she laughed. This guy, although she was collecting the Tao state energy, it was of great benefit to Chu Yang. This guy actually took advantage of her and even ordered her around. "What's the matter?" Chu Yang smiled mysteriously and said, "If I succeed now, the Tao state energy that I collect will also be unlimited." Zi Sheqing's eyes lit up. She gave him a kick and raised her eyebrows. "Say it quickly." "I heard that there's an expert of the Divine Clan imprisoned in the Zhuge clan." Chu Yang said mysteriously, "Now there's a heavenly secret in all directions. We only need to do this, and we can do that. Haha, by then all the experts will do that, and then you can do that, your head." Zi Sheqing was very interested and beamed with joy. After hearing it she was very sure. However, she grabbed Chu Yang's, and gave him another knock on the head. Only then did she go back to her room to sleep. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.